Good evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 313th take, live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. This is going to be a fantastic show. We welcome back one of our favorite friends outside of the show onto the show. It's going to be a great time. And we're going to talk a little bit about his journey. He's bounced around a couple of times. No, Jack Heyer is not coming back so soon, but we do have another guy just like him, just as daring and just as awesome. But before we get to formal introductions of our guest of honor, we do have to thank the people that make this show possible. And that, of course, are our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. Drew Estate is added once again with the all-new broadleaf Gordo for a Nica Rustica. From Wynwood Safe House in Florida, Drew Estate is thrilled to announce the addition of the Gordo size. Yep, that's a 6x60 to the Nica Rustica broadleaf family. While certain packaging elements have changed throughout the years, the Nica Rustica proudly remains Drew Estate's tribute to the people of Esteli. Moreover, the Nica Rustica broadleaf blend remains unchanged, preserving its rustic, spicy, and robust flavor profile, and always at an affordable price. Nica Rustica is wrapped in a Connecticut River Valley wrapper, Mexican San Andreas Negro binder, and contains Nicaraguan fillers from Esteli and Jalapa. Considered a straightforward power punch, the new Gordo 6x60 is a big cigar with big, fat flavors. It's just a flavor bomb, exclaims Jonathan Drew, founder and president of Drew Estate. So check out your Drew Diplomat retailer today for the all-new Nica Rustica 6x60 Gordo today. And welcome, everyone. This is our 313th take. If you are listening to us on live on Facebook, fantastic. We really welcome all of you guys who are live with us. If you're listening to us later on YouTube, you are listening to us courtesy of Foundation Cigars. Our YouTube channel is sponsored by Foundation Cigars. Foundation Cigars is based on three wonderful, amazing values: quality, consistency, and balance in flavor. Nick Melillo is a well-known cigar maker in the premium cigar industry. He is the founder and owner of the Foundation Cigar Company, which produces a range of high-quality, handcrafted cigars. Check out foundationcigarcompany.com today for all details regarding newest releases and a calendar of upcoming events. If you are listening to us later, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you download, subscribe, and review. Tonight's audio broadcast is always brought to you by Grand Habano Cigars. Yes, Grand Habano Cigars, honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today. We appreciate all of our sponsors for our audio and video broadcasts. And tonight's guest is sponsored by United Cigars. Smoke one today and start living united. Let's welcome in Mr. Joe Groh of Casa de Montecristo. Joe, how are we doing tonight?
Bear, I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me back, brother. It's been a pleasure. It's always great to be here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you back, Joe, and I'm just so excited to kind of go back and give you what I would consider a fair and honest take. So you've been on as a kind of a group paneling of sorts in other takes and everything, but this will be your first solo one. So we tried this last year, but it didn't take. I'm just going to keep using that word. But we were thrilled. We were thrilled with your substitute that night. That was fantastic. What a thrill to have Jimmy Menudo of Quality Importers. He was your stand-in
Yep.
for you. So that was great. But now we get to have you here as a solo take. I'm so excited for it, man.
Look forward to it, Barry. It's always a great conversation when you and I get to hang out. Although, fair and honest take, I have a feeling that there's going to be a few, criticisms, commentaries coming my way from, our lovely interactions we've had over the years.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't know either.
But I'm really excited to have you here, Joe, because I think we haven't really had, like I said, we haven't really had the opportunity to talk to you about your journey, in like full context and everything. And I think there's some really exciting stuff, and I don't think a lot of people have realized, you know, the the incredible companies that you've worked for in your career in the cigar industry, but just all the amazing projects that you've had the opportunity to be a part of and or responsible for in a lot of ways. So I think it's definitely worth examining and everything. But are you wearing is that a jersey you're wearing, or are you wearing something else?
That may be a jersey.
So Chicago
This
Blackhawks. I thought you were from Philadelphia.
I am
What's
from Philadelphia Bear. This is
okay.
a not so subtle taunting of me wearing a Clark W. Griswold Chicago Blackhawks jersey. I'm just saying, I had to come dressed appropriately. I didn't know you didn't know if you wanted to get into it too early, but you brought attention to it, so it's here.
It's there.
Just it's just
Well,
it's kind of like our relationship. It's always there. It's
it's
not always
all
spoken, but it's
it's
not, it's just understood.
the one constant through all the years, Ray, is the shittiest actor of all time. Yeah, that's what we're.
I mean, Chevy Chase is a constant. That's the way we should look at it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like, there's certain things we know. The sun sets, rises in the east and sets in the west, and Chevy Chase is one of the greatest comedic actors of all time. These are things, Do we question where the North Star is? No, it's north.
Yeah, you miss everything. Everything in that sounded correct except for you misspoke when you said best and you meant worst. But other than that, we're fine. So
I mean,
yeah,
we're
that makes
starting early, aren't we, Bear? See,
I
this
think
is
that's
this is the thing, This is we knew this
it.
was going to
Start
happen.
it starts earlier every year.
This is how it devolved very quickly.
This is how it starts earlier every year. And like honestly, this is why I invited you on at this time of year. I thought it would be perfect to kind of set you up for another month long
Well,
prolonging,
I
of
mean,
agony.
Christmas is coming earlier every year. I mean, we all
It's
go
true.
into, Home Depot and, you come in the middle of October and the Christmas trees are already set up. I'm just saying, we're not letting holidays breathe, but it's okay.
Yeah.
As a proponent of Christmas and Christmas vacation, these are, things we have to just accept and know that they're inevitable. But just to give everyone a little bit of subtext, or context to what's going on here, if you don't already know, Bear truly, absolutely despises Chevy Chase and more so Christmas Vacation. Now,
Yeah.
being a jolly old Saint Nick, love Christmas. I love Christmas Vacation. I feel that is one of the greatest holiday films of all time. Many people, most people actually, agree with me. So we've made this a little game. Every year,
Is it a
I
game? Is that what we
antagonize.
do?
That's something. I mean,
Okay.
kind of a game.
Yeah, I guess so.
I antagonize Bear for an extended period of time, usually posting quotes, pictures, images, sending random gifts, lots of lots of joy and merrymaking for the season. And then this culminates with a charity screening of Christmas Vacation, where Bear and his friends all get together to watch him suffer while he watches this movie. But we do it for charity of Bear's choosing, which is often Canines for Warriors, a
Hmm.
fantastic charity. And this is what the season's all about. This is what we do. So, just to give everyone who doesn't know why we're just rambling on about Chevy Chase and Christmas Vacation, this is why. And this is what we do. And this is kind of what the whole cigar industry is about in
And
some weird roundabout way.
it's already starting. So Vince Hill is already asking the question, how can you not like Christmas Vacation?
See?
It's quite simple, Vince. It's because it stars the worst actor in the history of comedy. I can't really call it comedy because he's not funny, but everyone insists that he's a comedian. So by de facto, I just put him in that category. So it's the world's worst comedian in a film that's absolutely stupid and ridiculous and is not funny whatsoever. The funniest line in the movie, and I do laugh every time, and Joe can attest to this because he's seen me watch it enough times, is yes, the shitter is full. And it's also very apropos because, Randy Quaid is smoking a cigar, so which is really great. And it's a very funny scene. The best part about that scene is that Chevy Chase is not in it. So but yeah, it is that time of year. And I am a man of honor, Joe, because during last year's screening I fell asleep
You
in the
did.
middle of it, and I woke up and y'all had left, but were kind enough to leave the movie growing on a loop, and so I stayed up and watched the whole thing again. So I watched it 1.5 times last year, as part of our agreement. So I am a man of honor, in spite of the fact that you guys have a terrible taste in films.
'Tis the season to be merry.
So exactly. So let's get on to what I'm lighting up. let's go stick with some tradition. So, Joe, you guys were kind enough to at Casa de Montecristo were kind enough to send me some very fantastic exclusive cigars. So let's talk about some of these, and then I'd like you to pick my cigar for the night.
All right, sounds good,
So,
brother.
so we have we were just talking about this with Drew Estate, the Casa de Montecristo exclusive, the Porchetta.
That's a
Um,
fantastic smoke.
It is very good. I've had a few of them. This is one that I have not had. There's actually a couple. There's actually a few of these in this list, which I'm really excited about it. The Rocky Patel ALR age limited and rare Casa de Monte Cristo exclusive as well. This is a Robusto Extra, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Robusto Grande, so it's a little extra, so it's a 5 by 52.
hmm And then, yeah, and that's totally like my jam. That's like my size. Not trying to lean you in any way or shape or form. But and then the very apropos, the 1933 anniversary Monte Cristo, Casa de Monte Cristo exclusive, which these are the Rothschilds, I would believe, correct?
So it's an exclusivo size. I will say this. I don't know, Ben, if you've talked to Ben recently, but that is his absolute favorite size of the 1935.
Nice.
I enjoy them. I smoke them in the morning, especially when I like go to the air. If I have an early morning flight and I'm flying out of Miami, you go to TGA Fridays, you light up a cigar with your breakfast. I will say that is a perfect smoke, perfect way to start your day.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. And then this is a new one that I know that you guys are really excited about. In fact, you're smoking it right now. Was the Crowned Heads Wabash Cannonball cigar, which is the Casa de Monte Cristo exclusive
Yes, sir.
from
We
Crowned
just dropped
Heads.
that on Friday the 8th. It just, it's a little bit more than a week old.
Beautiful,
So it was originally released in our Nashville store, a couple years back as an exclusive just to the Nashville location. We've brought it nationally. It's a slightly different blend. It's actually now out of Tacanista in Pichardo's factory in Nicaragua. So it's a great smoke.
beautiful. And then last but not least, this is a very large and gorgeous cigar from Southern Draw, the Casa de Monte Cristo exclusive, the Rose of Sharon Salomon. That is a gorgeous looking smoke there. So, so Joe, I mean, as tradition always holds, what will I be smoking tonight?
I think once look, and knowing the nature of our conversation, and we always like to go a little long, I'd say light up that Salmon.
All right, sounds good. Let's get it going. I love this blend. Um, the Desert Rose blend is probably my absolute favorite from Southern Draw, but I do love the Rose of Sharon blend. It's absolutely fantastic. We're
I'm
gonna
curious to see what you think of this blend in this Vitola. It is
Yeah,
very unique. It's very unique.
wonderful. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. But hey, listen, I told you I'm a good sport, and everybody knows this. So I actually going to be using a very special cutter for this cigar and this experience. So this is my one and only uh, kind gift from my good friend Joe Grow, which is the Christmas Vacation Zycar custom cutter that you made me. And yeah,
Yes, sir.
it's got Clark's face on the back there. I mean, how could you? If you're a fan, how could you not love that? Um, I absolutely hate this cutter, but I use it every Sunday because I'm thrilled with the friends that I have. And Joe Grow is a good friend of mine. So, um,
Appreciate that there. It's
and
touching.
and cuts great every time. Love it. And I'm gonna be using my ST DuPont Fluo lighter to light up this gorgeous cigar. Again, thank you for the cigars, Joe.
Oh,
Um, and I'm looking forward to lighting this up with you. So, what are you lighting up? What are you smoking?
I'm smoking on the Wabash Cannonball.
Okay.
I'm loving it right now. That San Andreas wrapper is just so tasty. I want something a little, I wanted to go, let's say it's a good medium body, nothing too heavy. I didn't want something super late that's going to keep me up till 4 in the morning, but just enough to keep me, wide awake and interested right now in in this cigar. I love the nuances in it. Get a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of spice, but not too much, not too heavy. And it just lingers on your tongue. It's fantastic.
The I it's been a while since I've heard someone say that. Joe, do you notice that with some cigars that you smoke that you can't go to sleep afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, there's some that this they're gonna, whether it be the nicotine or anything else, and it depends on my week, right? If I'm smoking 3 cigars a day, okay, maybe I can just, my body can take it. If it's been a light week for me, and then I smoke something super heavy, like 11, 10, 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm gonna be wired till 2, 3 in the morning. Yeah, it's just
Good.
how it's gonna go.
There's only been one time in I've had some interesting cigar smoking experiences, but there's been only one time that I can honestly recall where I know it was the cigar that kept me up.
What
Um,
cigar?
it was the Roma Craft Cro-Magnon Slobberknocker,
Mm,
the big 60 plus gauge 7.5 inch cigar or
yeah,
long. I think it's longer or something. And then it's also close footed, so you get like that. You get all that at the this
medium
is the
burst.
this just all straight broadleaf. Um, yeah. So I remember smoking that. And I was like, because I was really in it, and funnily enough, I was really tired, and I was ending a shift at when I was working. This was when I was working at Michael's,
Right.
and I was ending a shift. And I was like, "Ooh, I feel better now. This is cool. Let's go. I can finish my closing shift. Fantastic. Let's go." And then went home, finished the cigar, and then yeah, um, couldn't go to sleep like at all. Like yeah, I was
Yeah.
and I was exhausted. I was exhausted prior to that. Like straight up, I was like, and I thought it was like the coffee, the last coffee I drank or something like that. And I was like, no, I had my last cup of coffee around like 7, and this was like 2 in the morning. Like,
Yeah.
and then I was like, oh shit, it was a cigar, and yeah,
And then
I didn't
you're
sleep.
just dreading that alarm going off in the morning. You're just sitting there like watching it just tick by and you're just like, oof.
Oh, it was
But
rough. Yeah.
on the flip side, that cigar was worth it. I mean, that was a fantastic smoke.
Yeah, it was definitely a knock you out for sure. Um, but much prefer the smaller sizes of it. But yeah, this is really I'm really enjoying this, and it's already starting to kind of hit the taper, and it's already starting to open up. So, but still really mild and beautiful. Really enjoy this blend. So, but let's go ahead and dive in here into tonight's major point, which is always brought to you by Gran Habano Cigars. From the fertile lands of Honduras, George Rico and his family have put together the very best vintages for you. Yes, you, the cigar smoker. From value-based hits like Corojo Number 5 to the award-winning 20th anniversary to special projects like Zulu Zulu, Gran Habano is about cultivating the best and making pinnacle cigars for the market. Culture, tradition, quality, premium handcrafted Gran Habano cigars. So, Joe, I promised I wanted to do an honest to goodness take of you, and so there were, we kind of scratched the surface before, and the last time you were on as part of a panel where we were kind of introduced to you, Anfon, Jack Heyer, when the three of you guys were working at Drew Estate, um, and we kind of talked a little bit about your origins and beginnings and everything. But let's go back. I mean, were you born and raised in Philadelphia, or where did you grow up?
Yeah, so born and raised just outside of Philadelphia. I was born in Lankenau Hospital, and then we grew up for the first couple of years, Clifton Heights, moved to Lansdowne slash Drexel Hill because I was right on the borderline, and that's where I grew up, which is a suburb southwest of Philly. Spent my youth just growing up as a suburbs kid, really being able to take the trolley and take the L to go down to see Philadelphia, explore the city, be a part of it. And that's kind of just how we are. I mean, if Philadelphia, like if you from that area, if you're from Delco, and yes, I do have the accent, although not quite as it's not as exaggerated as Jack Heyer likes to make it out to be, although he does a really good Delco accent. Um, you know, you kind of Philly is a unique town. It's we're I'll be blunt, we can be assholes, but it's very blue collar. We're very, working. My dad's a teacher. My mom, she worked as a lunch lady. You know what I mean? Like that's a
Are
lot
you
of what we
serious?
all were. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah.
cool. That's cool.
And that, and that's what it was. All my friends were all, blue collar kids. We would go out, ride our bikes, dusk till dawn, like, or other way around, dawn till dusk, and just out playing, doing whatever else and exploring the world. And this is how it was. We grew up. I went to Upper Darby High School. We had a school
Hmm.
of 3,000 kids, which was
God, it's
ridiculously
massive. Yeah.
it's massive, but it was cool. It gave me a lot of, you got to experience a lot of different people, a lot of different viewpoints, and really enjoyed it, being there and then going down to see things like, Independence Hall, being able to have some fantastic food, being able to just do a lot of things that you just don't necessarily have that exposure. You go each way, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I graduated from a big high school too, and it was about that size. But you don't see that a lot. It's interesting because high schools are getting bigger and bigger, especially down here in Texas.
Yeah.
Um, and yet, you know, people people I run into and talk to like, oh, like how big was your graduating class? Like, oh, a couple hundred. This was like normal size.
Yeah.
And you're like one of the few people that I've met that wasn't like graduated from a large school like I did, and that's crazy. That you had
Yeah, I
to,
think my graduating class was 861. We started with like 1,000, and it
yeah.
was, it was massive. So from there, I mean, and throughout high school, it was interesting, right? I always knew that I wasn't, Barry, me, I'm 6'5" now, about 300 pounds, was like 220 back then. But, I'm a relatively large guy, but I didn't really give it, I didn't care about sports. So I didn't want to do that. And I knew I was going to do some sort of engineering. That's what I focused on. And,
Is this
you
where we
know,
can talk about this cool project you were part of? Like you built a or part of a team that built a omnidirectional wheelchair for paraplegics?
Oh, well, that was in high school. So we were part of a. So I was part of what's called. Some people may know it's called First Robotics. It's a very large program that's international, and you basically compete building robots to do competitions. Again, I knew I wanted to do engineering, so that was where my passion was. We had a team of about 40 to 50 kids, and we would build robots for these competitions. Well, beyond that, like, we had some very strong mentors, and we've got to do some really cool things. We worked on these specific wheels. They're called Mecanim wheels. We actually found them because they were used on a forklift that was designed for the Navy. They basically can go in any direction at any given time based on the design of the wheels. They're really cool. I'll drop a comment back in the chat later just so you can see what they look like. But it was like, this is the coolest thing. So we actually developed that and actually ended up getting a patent for the design we did with these for our robots. So we were building for the robots, but then we decided like, hey, what more could we do with this? And we got as part of an MIT grant along with like other schools. Like this is a program that MIT was putting on for high school students, and we actually developed one for a wheelchair, so that this wheelchair could go in any direction at any given time. It was a really unique process to go through this. It was really, really cool. We had a lot of fun with it. And, it was just something we believed in because you want to take things you're learning in school and how can we adapt them to society and how can we help others?
Mm.
So it was something that was truly a unique experience. And that kind of really solidified where I initially thought I was going to want to, where I was going to go in my life. But things obviously, change, but but it was different, and then
But
it
with
actually formulated a lot of the base processes of how I
Yeah,
work.
with your parents being blue collar, even I mean that had to have been super exciting, considering your father is an educator. Well, both your parents are in education. They're
Yeah.
just in different avenues. I mean that I mean that had to be like a really interesting because like are they from PA too? Like did they grow up the same
Yeah.
way? Okay,
Yeah, my
so
dad, yeah, they're both from PA. My dad played football in North Carolina. So he was a little bit, he was down there for a little period of his life, but he grew up and came back and he was an educator in PA.
oh wow. So I mean that had to be a thrill for your parents to kind of see that, you know.
Yeah, no, it really was, and it's funny. It was like over the years you would hear more about it. It's like when people would like, oh, you're Joe Gross kid, or like, oh, your dad would always talk to you about you because he was a physical education teacher. And he would like, oh yeah, he'd always bring you up in class and all this stuff. I'm like, that's cool. It always made you feel good that, that your dad's proud of you. And then, and he always tells me that still to this day. But it's just one of those, cool things to hear growing up.
So football, PE teacher. I mean, you
Yep.
couldn't have been much different. Like you said, sports were kind of of no interest to you. Um,
I just knew I wasn't going to do it in college. It wasn't even that I was like of no interest. I mean, I did shot put and some little stuff, but I knew I wasn't going to spend the time in college doing it. So I said, why bother? Why am I going to waste the time in high school when I knew I would go into a different, where I was kind of had an idea of where I wanted to go.
right.
So why not? And that was just kind of the choice. I figured I'd rather focus on learning skills and learning, something different.
Robotics and
But
engineering.
that's not to knock. Yeah, it's not to knock, sports at all. It just wasn't for me.
Did you go, did you apply or get into or consider going to MIT with
So I
the
didn't. Yeah, MIT I didn't apply to. I applied to, got into pretty much everywhere I wanted to go. I got into Virginia Tech, Worcester Polytech
Boston,
outside of
yeah. Yeah.
Massachusetts. Yeah, outside of Boston. Uh, a few other schools that I got into. But I settled on, I got into Drexel, which is a local engineering school in Philadelphia. But I decided on Temple because I figured I'd go to a state school. I liked the feel of being in an inner city campus, not to knock Virginia Tech or like Penn State, but I don't like, again, myself.
You
I'm
didn't
not a
like
guy
college
who's like the
towns.
college town. I don't want the college town atmosphere. It's like very drink the Kool-Aid to me, which I'm not like that guy. I want to have my own experiences and everything else. So I chose Temple,
Happy
which
Valley is a
wasn't.
cool place though. Like I can
Yeah,
understand if that's not your jam, but
yeah,
like just like I don't know, like there's something about that town that's
I get it. I
interesting.
know. It's just Holtz and yeah, Jonestown was a very interesting place too. I'm sure it's okay, but I'm kidding. But my point is that it's just one of it's just one of those things that it's not for me. And again, I wanted to have access to different things. I liked being in the city, so I chose Temple mostly because they gave me the most money. So I basically got almost a completely free ride, which for an engineering degree is awesome. I said I
Yeah,
didn't want to come out of school with a house in debt. That was my big thing. Like, other schools gave me varying amounts of money, but I was like, I'd rather have a house than debt. So that was kind of where I made my decision. And I figured end of the day, I could always go somewhere else for a master's or anything else that I wanted to do. Just get the base, my bachelor's and go from there.
sure. What's the I mean, so that's kind of the path that you decided to go on and everything and you ended up doing that for a while. You were a program engineer, right? For
Hmm.
Clean Customs or something?
Yeah, so that was a healthcare. The name does not sound at all like what it actually is. It was a healthcare IT startup company, and basically the technical term is master data management. What that means is when you talk to a hospital or you talk to like a healthcare website, they're pulling data from all these different places, and it is unclean, dirty, typos, misspellings, incorrect information, outdated information. And when you're talking things about like licenses and all this stuff, that's a
Like,
problem.
yeah, I was gonna say pretty
You
important
know,
stuff, right?
Pretty important stuff. Your medical records, you don't want that to be outdated or incorrect information. So
Sure.
what we did was we would take that information. I was since my degree was in electrical engineering, but I was a computer engineer, software engineering. I focused on a lot of data analysis, data information, and a lot of just basically it's cleaning of data, making sure that what we give you is a clean record of information. And that's kind of what we did there was really kind of, really focus in on this is the truth. Because at the end of the day, no matter what you say, numbers don't necessarily lie, but again, you want it to be accurate. So we would always do that. And it's funny, a lot of that even though it's nothing at all similar to what I do today in terms of what field I'm in, a lot of the ways that I look at things and how we talk about it, and we'll talk about it later with the things that I do with like rewards programs or loyalty programs, stem from this very, small kernel of where I started my career.
Yeah, because how do you that? Okay, so let's before we kind of talk about the transition from, I guess, this engineering to the cigar industry and everything, and just kind of go back to again to your life growing up, in Pennsylvania. Like,
Hmm.
like, was there an introduction to cigars? Like, did your dad smoke cigars? Did your grandpa smoke cigars? Like,
So outside of an uncle or two or a cousin, no one smokes cigars in my family, or at least they didn't until I started. Um, it had a few cigarette smokers, and that's even where started smoking. Right, my dad never smoked. Mom would smoke cigarettes, but not often or in front of me. She still preferred to like hide it and like smoking in the garage or whatever else to like not like let us see it, which was always kind of funny.
look,
Um,
she had to smoke cigarettes. See, she was a lunch lady. I mean, no
oh yeah,
self-respect, no self-respecting quality lunch lady would can would be
oh
sans
yeah,
cigarette, at least the occasional cigarette. I mean,
oh at least
uh,
yeah, but she wasn't
uh,
getting it in the food, so at
yeah,
least we're not
exactly.
back in
No,
those
no,
days.
no. I mean, that's how we knew the food was made with love, though. Was that she was a mom and the
Yeah,
occasional cigarette.
and
That's
God
all you
knows
need.
that me and my brother wouldn't give her headaches now and again.
Yeah.
But no, realistically, it was so they would smoke cigarettes. I, it's funny, I still remember this. I must have been in like third grade. At one point, I don't know how the conversation came up, but one of my teachers asked the question, would any of you ever smoke cigars? I don't know if they were talking about cigarettes at the time or if they were talking about, like how this full conversation happened. But I remember that exact question would be vividly. And I was like, I was like one of the only people who I was like, yeah, probably. I'm like, why? I'm like, I chew on my pens. I figure that's, the next logical thing. But that's, it was just at the time it was weird. It
Hmm.
was a third grade thing that sticks out to me as a memory. One of those like weird memories that just sticks with you. But
I, yeah,
God,
I'm the same way. I was around the same age when I was like, I decided I knew that I was going to be a cigar smoker. Like I was going to smoke a cigar on my 18th birthday. That was going to be the thing.
but see,
And
I didn't, and that's the thing. I didn't though. I didn't get to that point until a little later. So college came and engineering is stressful. So I would smoke cigarettes, I would do Marlboro Reds, and I didn't really necessarily enjoy it. And God knows they're already starting to get super expensive.
yeah,
So that became problematic. And, but again, it was a stress thing. Then I would switch to Black and Milds, which I enjoyed a little bit more. Still wasn't like, but I enjoyed it a little bit more of an experience that I was getting than the cigarettes. So I would do that. And then one day, so it was after I graduated college. It was right when I like this right around the exact time I graduated. I decided I was like, I was browsing on Reddit and then I ended up getting either as an email or a flyer, and I forget which. It's from CI.
okay,
Buy a sampler, get the starter kit, right? 10 cigars, a humidor, lighter, and a cutter. I knew no idea what I was doing, but I said, you know what? That seems like the way to go.
yeah,
Let me at least start there because then I don't have to worry about anything. I knew, like, I knew enough about cigars, how you had to upkeep them and take care of the humidor. So, and it was like $40. Four. I can't go
yeah,
wrong, right?
yeah.
So
There's
that's,
you definitely blown money on worse things. Yeah, like in
oh yeah.
college and stuff. Yeah,
Oh yeah. 100%. I have blown money on a lot worse things. So I figured, why not? Let me try it. Let me see. And that's what I did. So I ordered it. It came in, you know, I let the cigars, I followed the directions, put the shot glass in the humidor. It was funny that it was actually a quality importer's humidor, but I wouldn't know that at the time. It was a Humidor Supreme, but that was be years later. But then, I set it up, put the cigars in, and decided to smoke one. And then I promptly threw up a half an hour later because I smoked a Toro in 30 minutes, not knowing what I was doing.
dang
But
man.
yeah, it was a Hoyo de Monterrey Excalibur. I remember that as well, vividly.
Oh my God,
I
dude,
was
that's my kryptonite cigar. Like it's
really?
not supposed to be right. It's a natural shade. It's an English. It's a Claro. It's a Claro wrapper.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
like and there's something about. I mean, I love it. I love it. I'll still smoke them to this day. But like, dude, that cigar. It doesn't matter. It's funny that we kicked off tonight talking about the Slobberknocker experience.
Hmm.
The Hoy de Monterey Excalibur will 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 give me will deliver a buzz to me every single time. Like I'm just like, whoa,
Well, I
it's
picked the
so
wrong
weird.
one. So I puked all over the toilet. And I'm sitting there, and then, so most people who are probably normal in the head,
Yeah.
would say, okay, this isn't for me. I'm done. No, I said, you know what? I don't think this is a normal experience for people because otherwise they wouldn't smoke
They
cigars
wouldn't do
if
that.
this
Yeah.
was normal. So I must have done something wrong. And that's how I really got into it, where that's when I got into Reddit R cigars because I was loving Reddit as just from other communities at that point, and really started going down the rabbit hole like, oh, I inhaled. Oh, I'm smoking way too fast. Okay, slow it down, puff a minute, like the basic stuff. And that's when I started, okay, let me learn and let me start my journey here. And started learning about cigars, learning about, all the different things, etiquette, how to light, how to cut, what are the different ways of cutting and lighting a cigar, what are the different types of cigars, the wrappers, where do they come from, how does this all go down? And then that led me into, okay, let me smoke through what I have, smoke through those. Nothing, I had no palate at that point. And I would try a couple more here or there. And then eventually I went into a store because I got an email blast from a local shop, and they were having a sale on a bundle of, it was Alec Bradley Black Markets.
Oh, damn.
Don't know why it called out to me other than I saw people say, hey, these are pretty good.
Yeah.
And I bought a bundle of them. Again, this was like my first like major cigar purchase outside like the humidor. And that was when I first started taking tasting at least a couple notes. I got creaminess. I got white pepper. And then I'm like, oh, this is what it is. This is what a cigar is supposed to be. And now I'm starting to go, okay, now I can see why people like this or why they're going down and spending, at the time, $7 to $10 to $15 for a cigar, and why they enjoy it so much. So that was the first cigar that actually really changed things for me. And then we went down a very, very terrible and long rabbit hole of a cigar consumer, because I'm a guy who likes to, when I go into a hobby, I don't go halfway. I go full ham. Started buying cigars by boxes. We met as a local. We started forming a local Reddit group. We had a HERF group going, and it was started with like 5 to 7 of us. Few great guys out there, that we would just smoke with. My buddy Chris, guys who I still talk to this day. We're still friends to this day. And then all of a sudden, we started trading. We would trade cigars. We would hunt stuff down. We would say, "Oh, did you smoke this yet? Have you gotten this yet?" Then it got bigger. And next thing you know, we got like 15, 20 guys. And we would start bombing each other. We would literally be throwing cigars or packs of cigars at each other in the lounge. Like literally like, oh, you're new? Here's a bag of cigars. Enjoy it. Because that's what this community is, right? We are generous. We don't even think about it really.
Yeah.
Like when you give someone a cigar or you give someone, hey, here's a 5 pack or here's some cigars. Like we all at this point have so many, we just don't even know. We were just kind of even trying to get rid of some at this point. But you're literally handing someone 10, 15, $20 at a clip. And we don't think about that. We just think, I enjoyed this. I want you to enjoy this. That's that camaraderie. That's that spirit of, BOTL and fellowship, right? SOTL. Like we're building a community here because we all want to learn together and we all want to enjoy together. I think you like this. Try this one because this will blow your mind. And that's a cool thing.
So, how many years had you been smoking when the opportunity to go work for Drew Estate came around?
So I had been smoking at that point for about 5 years. Um, the way he got to Drew was I mean, it was kind of unique, right? And so for me, became a moderator on Reddit Cigars with a fan of who's director of brands over at Drew Estate. And we met up in Chicago we had a Reddit meetup there, which was awesome. That's where I got to meet him for the first time in person. We would have like us and a few of the guys, we would have like every other day we'd be on Google Hangouts and just like talking, smoking cigars, talking about it. He came to my house once for a Tatawahe SNS mega herf. So he spent the night there. It was cool. And then he got hired on at we actually did another way we did this was actually how we got there. I did a we did a blend with Small Batch Cigar with Andrew over at Small Batch and Reddit at Espinosa. And we were actually this is where I got to meet Hector Alfonso. So it was called Sombrero de Copa. And it was an awesome blend that Hector really, he kind of like steered his way, how they do with the guys who are like, here, try this, try this. Not like you're an actual blender by any means, but he says, here's kind of what you like. Let me try a couple more things. And then he just kind of guides you where you should be. He knows what he's doing. We're just kind of following along and saying what we like. So we worked on that project. And that night, Sam Morales and Jonathan Drew took me on and the rest of us out to dinner. So we got to meet them and just hang out for a bit, just chatting, talking. Saw him again at IPCPR. I was acting at this point as a buyer because I was working part-time for a couple lounges, but I was acting as a buyer for B&B Cigars. So Vince, shout out to you. Vince was actually one of my first bosses in the cigar industry. Great guy, awesome learning under him. And shout out also to Trey at Cigar Mojo, another great store. Well, two stores now. Fantastic bosses who really give me the basis of education as cigar retail. But I was working as a buyer at the show, got to see these guys again. I was also volunteering with Cigars for Warriors. So kind of like scraping at the edges of the industry, right? Just kind of going in, learning some new stuff, learning different sides of it, just because I was interested. Again, I wanted to learn more about cigars and tobacco, learn more about just how the industry worked. And then fast forward a few months. This was in February of 2017. My job, like I said, was a startup. And at that point, it was kind of going sideways. One boss wanted to work on product development, one wanted to work on consulting, and the partners were kind of splitting. I was caught in the middle, and they're like, "Look, we're not going to be able to keep you. Just you want to, if you want to go on half salary, it's great." I said, "No, I have to pay my rent, so let me just keep
So,
on for a few more months and let's see what happens, and then we'll go from there." But I
yeah,
immediately
like
started looking for
food.
jobs.
You're like food and shelter is pretty much a valuable thing to me at this
Yeah,
point.
I like being, having a house and everything else in my life. So, but
Are
was
you
really,
married? Are you still single at this point? Are you married at this
yeah,
point, or
I was in a relationship at that point, but nothing like, not married, nothing else. So it was just a relationship back home. So then that night, there was a post up that on and Sam both shared for a digital marketing manager for Drew Estate. Literally that night, and I said, "That's really weird, but okay, let me learn more." Text on, talk to him about the job. He says, "Call Sam, talk to him, see what
is
talk to
on
him
working
about
for
his
Drew
role."
Estate at this point? So on.
Am was hired on in January, yeah, just about the month before. He got hired on the month before as a brand manager.
Okay.
So I talked to Sam, talked to him that night. It's like, look, you should apply. We'll see what happens. But we're building, what he's building down here. It's, he wants cigar geeks. He wants guys that really know the ins and outs of the industry. And he's like, we're building a team, completely redoing it from scratch. And I said, okay, what the hell? I'm 27 at this point. I have, I'm like, let's see what happens. It was just kind of, very stars aligning kind of moment that this literally came up the day that I find out that, hey, the job's going kind of sideways. So I apply, wait a couple weeks, I do an interview, just do a phone interview, then kind of radio silence for about, I'd say, another 3 weeks. I'm starting to get nervous. I'm like, hey, what's kind of going on? I got to start looking for other things just in case because I knew, my clock was ticking at the other job. And, I was like, just hold on. We got TAA, something else. We're just, we're super busy at the moment. Just hold on. Next thing you know, I get a call from Sam. Says, congratulations. We'd like to hire you on. Can you start in 2 weeks? I said, can you give me three? Because I got to kind of pack up my life up here and, move on down. And he's like, okay, that's fine. So literally closed up my life up in Pennsylvania, threw my cigars, my dog, and my clothes in the car. Everything else went into storage, and then drove down to Miami. Ended up living with On for a year, but that's how I started at Drew Estate.
Oh wow, so you guys were roommates for a year before you?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
He
man.
he he put up with me for a year. I appreciate. It was I really do appreciate that because he gave me that home for that first period when you have no idea what's going on the lay of the land down there. I
I,
had I was in Miami for 3 days in my entire existence.
On's pretty infamous for this, man. Like, I mean, the amount of people that I know who have slept on his couch, just passing through or just needing. I mean, he's offered for me whenever I go down to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is pretty par for the course. But giving up, bringing you in for a year, man. I'm sure you were, paying your fair share as a roommate, but like, that's still pretty awesome, for him to.
Oh yeah. No, An is one of the most genuine human beings on the planet. You
Mhm.
know, yeah, he and I, when you're roommates, you butt heads about certain stuff, 100%. That just happens. But at his core, he's one of the best people. He's a very close friend, and I truly appreciate him because, again, he's the one who, got me down here, which ended up completely changing my life.
Yeah, so I mean, your time at Drew Estate, you kind of, you were, I mean, you held a couple of official positions, but you did a lot and worked on a lot of different projects over the years. Because you were with the organization for just under 6 years, right? You were with Drew for just under
Yeah,
6 years,
five
right?
and a half years.
So, I mean, what were some of the most unique projects that you worked on? I mean, it could have been a cigar. Was it like I know you're really heavy into the barn smoker. You were part of one of the reasons I got to go to my first barn smoker. Like what were some of the most unique projects you got to work on?
I mean, I got to work on a lot of unique stuff. There's, one of the things, especially the way the marketing department and the team is at Drew, is you're very collaborative. We all work together. We bounce ideas off each other. We would learn from each other, and trying to do, unique things. I mean, for me, a couple, unique things that I definitely want to say, like, hey, we worked on, or one of the cool experiences I had. I would say the one of the ones that stand out, the first ones were like when we first smoked the wrapper, what would become Liga Privada H99 and Anniversario. I remember it was me on and Mike Garcia at the time. We were smoking some fumas of the wrapper in his office, and he was like, "Try this," and you light that up, and you're like, "Wow, that was amazing." And you're like, he's like, so you guys like it? And, learning about the Rito wrapper and how it came from Foster's Farm, like that is some really great stuff. And like, it was amazing. It's a cool, like, core memory of just like, wow, you're part of something, like you're building the next Liga Privada. And I had, very little part of the blending. Obviously, I had nothing in part of the blend or any part of that side of the things, but you're part of that project.
Right.
And that's a cool thing, to be a part of that next generation.
To
And
say
then I
that you have your
remember,
fingerprints on, I mean, arguably one of the most iconic boutique releases that ended up being like a very household name. I
yeah,
mean, Liga Privada is synonymous with like Opus X, Padron,
right.
Anniversarios. Like, I mean, it's like the Sasquatch, hey, Monster Series. I mean, it's in that sphere of like those recognizable names.
Yeah. And that was just a cool thing. And I mean, as you know, from my onset at Drew, I was very heavy in the media. I,
Hmm.
kind of really spearheaded a lot of the, things that we did with the media, or interactions or engagement with the media, talking to you guys on an almost daily basis, be it press releases, product information, just getting the, learning. And that was a cool thing is I'm trying to remember if you were there that night. You might have been, but night was crazy for a lot of reasons. Was the Liga Privada launch party at PCA of the Liga 10 and the H99. Were you there that media night? It was at like the castle in Old Vegas
And simultaneously, that was Cinco de Cadas, right?
and Cinco de Caldas.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, I was. Yes.
Yes. So that was a crazy night because I remember
Because
this
you guys
party.
ran out of the other ones, and I mean, Boo-hoo.
We
Boo-hoo, I got to smoke a Cinco de Cadas. I mean, it was,
right.
it
And we
was, but it
made
was a great night.
yeah, it was crazy. The party was packed, but it was like I remember like okay, this party was like okay, this is what I got to put on, so we're doing that. Well, first of all, they were like okay, we'll have Cinco de Cadas in the inside downstairs, and then upstairs on the outside rooftop is where we'll do the Liga Privada. Well, that was the one day that it decided to like flash flood
In
for
Vegas,
the
yeah.
entire
Yeah.
yeah in Vegas for the entire afternoon. So we're trying to set up for this party. We can't. Stuff's getting soaked. We're like, oh my god, is this going to be ruined? Downstairs simultaneously have the lights. So that we rented this venue out. It was supposed to come with a tech, except the tech didn't know how to turn the lights on in the building. So you remember, like when you saw Dr. Cuenca was giving you the cigar, you had like floodlights in that room, and that was
Right.
about it. There was some
It
like
was
dark spotlights, and that was it.
the
No
floodlights
one
and
knew how to turn.
him lighting my cigar.
Right.
Those were the only
Yeah,
lights.
it
Yeah.
was like cigars by candlelight, but even worse. And it was because they didn't know how to turn the lights on this building. This was the kind of craziness that would happen only to like when you're at Drew Estate. Like some of this stuff, you're just like, oh my God. But what it teaches you is, hey, you have a problem. How do we overcome it? And how do we make it the experience good so that none of our guests either don't care or even better, they're just having a blast. They're having
There
such a
you
good time. They don't even think about it because you're giving them such a good time. The rest of that party, once the weather dried up and everyone got in and we're all just sitting there breathing for a minute, that was an amazing night. We were launching an amazing brand. We're sitting there having conversations. We're having fun with you guys talking just for, that's what it's about is that camaraderie coming back to that moment where you're like, this is special. And that was a really cool thing. And I like to think that like that's like okay, this was all the cool stuff pre-COVID because then the nature of my job and everything else, like everyone else's, shifted dramatically post-COVID. So as soon as COVID hit, now digital marketing became the key to everything at the moment because guess
right.
what? Everything is shut down. What do we do? Guys are worried, first of all, when COVID hit, everyone said, okay, guys, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Right.
And then, but I will say this JD knew and got that in our head very quickly. Guys, this is going to be a lot bigger than you
Yeah.
think it is.
Jack Hire was saying the same thing a couple of weeks ago. He was on my show. He was recanting saying the same thing that JD called
hmm
it.
And he was like, guys, just start prepping. Don't worry about, well, yeah, everyone's freaking out about, okay, well, shops are closing. How are we going to make money? How are we going to do all this stuff? He said, start prepping. Just plan for it. You guys have jobs. Don't worry about this. Let's do it right. And let's planning ideas. Started asking for things, started wanting things. And he was like, let's build something out. And that's how we started building out the concept of virtual events.
Yeah.
So I started putting together what
Freestyle
this
Live was born, right?
well, this is even before Freestyle Live. And Freestyle Live came as this like as a subsequent with this. We were running two things in parallel because one of the biggest things that we did at Drew Estate, obviously, is events.
Yeah.
Drew Estate is a machine with events, getting their TMs out in front of people, engaging with the customers, talking to them, bringing the party to the stores, and doing it in a way that really, benefits the consumer because it really engages with them, and that's what makes them love the brand. Well, when the stores aren't open and you can't do any of that, well, how do you do it? So luckily, very quickly, we started seeing tech, right? Zoom was just, we never heard of Zoom really up until, guess what, COVID,
Yeah, until 2020.
maybe
Yeah.
like a little bit here or there.
We were here we were one of the first people to use it. Like it was this new tool. This was
hmm
pre-COVID. We're like, oh, we stumbled on this program and it's like really great. And then like my company switches to it during COVID. Yeah, and then it just became this worldwide phenomenon and here we are.
Exactly. It became a verb, right? I'll zoom you
Yeah.
later. Let's have a Zoom later. I'll zoom you later. So we're sitting there and we're like, okay, well, what if we just take what happens at our events, a lot of the engagement, brand talking, and seeing how can we make them virtual? Whether we sell or don't sell, if the store can sell product or not, let's figure out a way to do it because that's the real thing we were trying to do, right? Is two things. One is to engage with our customers that we couldn't see anymore in physically in person. And also to keep trying to keep our shops, help the shops keep their lights on. They need to transact product. So let's send them the same thing that we would do in an in-store event. Let's send them swag kits. Let's have an event and start really scripting this out. Like, okay, we have the intro section talking about who you are, go around the room, have everybody introduce themselves, engage with one another, like kind of like we would do at a lounge. And then talk about product education. Okay, here's this. Okay, we got Willie or Pedro on, let them talk about the blends and really kind of get into that piece because we were really focusing on making sure as many of these as possible, again, to encourage the engagement and getting people to come in. Well, you got a chance to talk with Willie and Pedro in a way that you haven't before, and getting them or JD, or so we get all these guys on, and we would rock it. So we would start doing these events, and yeah, they were slow at first, but then they start picking up again as more people got used to the technology, and we were doing 10, 15 events a week, all now virtually, and we were still just doing this. And again, it was in the spirit of keeping the people engaged, keeping brands alive. Okay, cool, and this is a good thing. But now the next step, right? Well, we have to market our brands. We have to introduce brands. We just literally right before COVID, we pulled, we were out of PCA. So Drew Estate pulled out of PCA. We weren't going to do the trade show. Okay, well, what's next? How's this going to look? And we started with this concept of Freestyle Live as a way to introduce and launch brands. And we started with the smallest one, our first one was with Corona, where we launched Year of the Rat. So that's one that not as many people remember because it was a kind of a weird mix. And so we did it, we launched it, we sold out a Year of the Rat, and we brought it back, and we now became a national release. And that was a cool thing, right? That was a cool experience. Okay, we launched this, we did it. Now let's just use this as our brand education and start using this as now our tool to talking to people. And again, how do we keep building this excitement? How do we keep getting people engaged or going to the next level? And that's when we started, we're starting to get into COVID, we're ebbing and flowing, right? Hey, is it getting worse? Is it getting better? What are we going to do? And this is when TPE moved to, they were moving to May. You remember when TPE was moving to May? It was like 2021. Right. They knew that. They knew they weren't getting in January of that year. So they said, okay, let's move it to the next. Well, so we're sitting there and like, okay, they move it. COVID's not going down. So we said, all right, we're not going to be attending TPE. Well, this was the year we were going to launch Underground 10.
Right.
And we had a full-on campaign ready to go. And I mean, the team, the entire marketing department, this was probably this is probably the thing I'm most proud of there, was how that entire team built this campaign for Underground 10. But we didn't have a vehicle to launch it now because TPE was going to be the introduction. Right before the summer selling period, everything. It was going to be great. Well, what do we do? I knew we had cigars in-house. They had bands on them. They had pre-release bands on them. We were going to do them as part of the event campaign. Well, you can't do an event campaign until you launch a cigar. So that was part of it. And I knew roughly how long we had before we had to kind of really get to actually launch this thing. So we started looking at the cigars. I was working with On. We're like, okay, what if we did taking different elements from different things and built we're going to sell this as a blind sample to the consumer. You're going to get 3 premium sticks. We called over to QI, said, hey, can you turn around swag in 30 days? We need about 2,500 pieces of a lighter, a cutter, and a travel humidor. And we said we needed this because it's so fast, so we could get it out, because you have to sell it into the store. It has to go to the consumer. And then we still have to launch in time for when we wanted to sell it right before, right before the summer months. So we needed to get this fast. They said they could do it. So they threw their swag bunker, put together the swag. And I said, we have to make this such an unbelievable value because you never know. This is something untested. So this is like the consumer just can't say no. So in this case, they're getting an XI2, they're getting a lighter, they're getting a travel humidor and three cigars for, I think we sold the first one for $30.
Yeah, it was a steal.
It was like, it was just, you couldn't say no. And on top of that, I said was, okay, let's strategize, right? Well, the consumers won't say no because it's a great deal. But what about the retailers? They might feel, shaky about this. Oh, let's give them some prizes. Let's give them some prizes. And then we threw prizes again, also for the consumers so that they have a reason to tune in. Hey, register your email, register your badge, and you get a chance to win a prize. And we gave away a dirt bike on the first one. And then we're just like, okay, let's try it. So we a massive amount of work, everybody pulling a ton of work just to getting this all together, be it the cigars, the swag, getting everything launched. We had videos made, we had everything. And that's when we launched, this Freestyle Live special edition with a cigar. And the fervor behind the packs was crazy. Watching the consumers get excited about this, guessing the cigar, trying to guess the blend. I mean, it was on a level that I hadn't seen. And we started seeing like, okay, well, what's this really going to look like? Now, on the flip side, while we're doing that, I have Jack sitting there like, okay, now we got to build out a show. We got to entertain people here. Like, we can't just do this and just, okay, here's the cigar and walk away. Like, we have to build something out. We built a studio. Like, we got a studio desk. I'm sitting there, Jack knows. I was like going through the script. We were like fine tuning every detail, every word, dress rehearsals, cameras stationed everywhere. We had no idea if we could do this or not. We had like 10 laptops hooked up to 10 different cameras. Like, it was nuts. But we pulled it off. And I mean, again, this is a teamwork of a marketing department. Shout out to Ron, the head of IT at Drew. He was able to help us pull this off. Like, it was crazy, and it paid off. And we were able to launch a brand that, in a way that I don't think has really been seen before or since in the industry, of a way that like really kind of captured that moment again of a COVID moment of a brand launching where everyone's eyes were on it.
Yeah.
And then immediately the next day to be hitting with, okay, we got Underground 10 swag, we got raffles, we got this, we got that. And then at the end of the year with the ratings, I mean, the cigar was amazing. Shout out to Willie, the team, in Nicaragua. They did a great job there. That cigar is mind blowing. Joey with the packaging was fantastic. On again with everything, putting that brand together, the brand story, everything. That cigar was a massive hit. And then
Mhm.
we capped it off with a slew of ratings and winning the half wheel consensus by the highest margin that's ever existed. Sorry, Steve. That was my 1 year that I had to just that I'll let that one in there. But but it was just a massive win. That was just a great way to launch a brand. And then we said, okay, now we did it once. How do we make it better? And then from there, just elevating again and again, doing crazy shit. Like John was adamant that we give away a Bitcoin, and we gave away a Bitcoin. That was
Mhm.
cool. Like it was just a really unique thing to build upon that. And that was a lot of fun, man. That was that like that whole process of building it out and then just keep evolving it and seeing what they've done since.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Before we talk about your transition away from Drew, I want to go back to something because I've always been interested to hear your perspective. Now, I'm not necessarily looking for any inside track information that you can't share or anything, Joe, but
Hmm.
again, you're part of this industry, and like you said, Drew does events, and for the few years that you were part of it pre-COVID, the trade show, the PCA trade show was very big for Drew Estate, and that in a large part was your baby. You took the media teams around, and you were fantastic at that, and really were essential in getting the information to us so that we could get the information out, to the consumers and everything. So I mean, it was you did a great job with it. And the 1 year you had to step away because you thought your your first baby was coming. Josh Roke stepped in really great for you. But I know that that was a testament to the teamwork that you guys had, and that was a big part of what you were and everything. So now, again, you walk into the office one day. I'm presuming you may have heard whispers or something like that, but for all intents and purposes, one day this is a big part of what you do and your responsibility
Hmm.
and everything, and a big part of Drew Estate's identity. And then all of a sudden it's like, nope, we're not going anymore. We're out. We're done. Like what like did that did that kind of rattle you is probably an extreme word, but did it shake y'all up? Like was like, wait, was it like a real confusing time? Like what do we do now? Like where we go from
Well,
here or what was that like?
it was. I was a part of. I was actually one of the first non like executive team to know because again, at the time I handled the media, and again, messages like this had to be carefully coordinated, and it was a lot of discussion, a lot of how's the industry going to react? How are people going to react? How are we going to get this, communicate at the time Drew's, views on the trade show and the organization clearly because that was it. I mean, it is there. Drew is fighting for they were fighting for their portion of their representative of their portfolio,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
which is completely reasonable at the end of the day, right? That's their cigars make especially the things of infused cigars make up a large make up a good portion of their sales,
Yeah.
and
I mean
they're not
they dominate the non-traditional market. They do. It's
correct, and that's the thing, and they don't want to, and rightfully so, they want to protect their interests, and that's completely understandable, but making those decisions it is weird, and once the press release was out and the information's out, it's like whoa, there's a lot of like it's a hit because at the end of the day, we're not, nobody was actively like, and none of the big four, I don't feel were like, okay, we're looking to hurt the industry or we're looking to take share from others or do this or do that, or we're doing this to save pennies here and because of a trade show. None of that matters. That's not why we're doing this. We're doing this to take care of what we believe, what they believe in, that we're fighting for premium cigars. We're fighting for the industry. We're fighting for our portion of the trade show, of the fight. You know, Drew AUSA. I mean, Javier he's the chairman of the CAA, so very much aligned with CAA. And at the time, PCA was a little bit different place than they are now. So, well, hey, this is where our loyalties lie and what we need to do, and to clearly talk about this. And what Drew Estate did at that point as well was say, hey, we're not going to take a price increase. Look, we are saving money. This is not, we're not going to be saying, oh, no, by the way, X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, no. We are taking our investment that would have been in a trade show and reinvesting that back into the retail, starting with no price increase that year. In addition to that, by the way, then COVID hits and everything else. And it's like, look at all the other stuff that we chose to invest in.
hmm
And that's really kind of what they did, and that's how they went about it, really, is to think about how do we benefit or show that it's look, this isn't about a money situation, it's about how do we benefit our retailers, how are we going to help them, because at the end of the day that's what matters.
I think that no, I think I would love to have that argument with anyone, but I think that Drew Estate, McAuliffe were probably the 1, 2, 1A, 1B that handled, and again, microcosms apart in
Mhm.
terms of scale and operation, but as far as handling COVID, that first 365, those were the two companies that handled it the best and found the most amount of success in that during that time for a lot of different ways. But I think everybody was finding success. Cigars were being sold at like just record paces for everybody.
Well,
If you weren't selling
yes, and
cigars during COVID, like you were doing something wrong.
well, hold on, but before you say that though, Bear, I won't necessarily agree with that full statement because yes, we did end up going through a big boom, but I know early on in COVID it was very hard, especially when it was either full lockdowns or
Oh yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
like that first, I would say that first 6 months, 8 months, a lot of the smaller brands struggled because they couldn't get the face time that they're used to, or letting someone walk in a humidor and browse.
Right.
Before, when you had to just it went to people defaulted to what they knew, what they could remember, a brand that they
Yeah,
liked.
the Drew Estates, the
And
Fuentes. Yeah, yeah,
the
exactly.
Drew
Yeah,
Estate, the Fuentes, the
the
Macanudos,
those. Yeah.
the Romeo y Julietas, the Monte
Mhm.
Cristos. These are names that I know, trust, and believe in. And it's not saying that they don't know the other ones, but they may know them a little less, or it's not in their regular rotation, and that does hurt. And so we did see. I know a lot of the smaller guys were at least at first. Now, luckily, that we all went through was the increase in the amount of smokers, people smoking, just consumption goes up, new consumers to trial. These were all great things. But I will say it was a little bit different than just saying, oh yeah, we all did well at the end of the day we all did well. But for those first period, there's some brands that it hurt them for a little while.
So with that being said, though, like you guys did really well with handling that challenge particularly. And simultaneously, you were still in the process of communicating your message as to why you were leaving the PCA behind.
Hmm.
Do you think, like you said, and there were legitimate reasons for that? Do you feel like since you were a part of it, do you feel like that you guys did successfully communicate that um, better, better than others, better than what you wanted? Or was it on par? Was it not what you guys did it not live up to the expectations? I mean, how do you think that landed ultimately?
I mean, I can't speak because I wasn't with in open communication with the other big three at the time. And they're choosing not to go. But I think and for most of True State, they think they did. I think we resonated for the most part with our retailers. There was a lot of, again, Drew Estate's a company that engages, right? It's not like a fight or flight response. I mean, they engage. And that it was conversations to be had between executives to shop owners, executives, TMs to store clerks, everyone understanding why and what was important, and really kind of hammering that home. So I feel like, yeah, we did. Drew Estate did a really good job during that time to express their viewpoints and getting it out there. And I mean, that is realistically, and then again, backing that up with action. Wasn't just, okay, here's why and calling it a day. It was, okay, here's why, here's what happens next, and what we're going to do for you instead. It's not like we're abandoning the industry in any way. It wasn't like, hey, we're going to, do this and then just, raise it up. No, we're investing back in. We're investing
Gotcha.
harder because we can.
All right, before we go into your next career transitions and everything, we're going to pause here with one of our fun segments, which is always our United Presidential Trivia segment, which is brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke one today and start living united. So, I wanted to I wanted to ask a couple of questions, and I thought this was very interesting. So, you know, you share a name with our current president of the United States, President Joe Biden,
Hmm.
and not only that, but you also hail from the same state. So thought the similarities were pretty cool. So I wanted to bust out some Biden trivia tonight in honor of the president who will be departing in January from office and leaving his mark on history. So um, so these are two separate questions. So they're blanks. They're blank questions. So fill in the blank. And there's a little bit of a trickiness, but I think you're gonna get these, Joe. Oh, so Joe Biden is the second blank president.
Catholic.
Very good. Second question. Who was the first? Just curious if you know.
JFK.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Easy enough, right? Uh,
Born Roman Catholic. You kind of we know who we
you, you,
know.
s- you guys stick together. All right. Second question. Joe Biden is the second president blank. So he's a
Mm,
second. He has two notable second things about him. One of them is him being Catholic. There's another one though.
don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. He is the second president that hails from the state of Pennsylvania. James
Mm,
Buchanan is the only other president that was born in the state of Pennsylvania. So,
mm.
um, Joe ended up being a representative of the state of Delaware for much of his career and everything, but obviously hails from your home state and everything, Scranton area. So,
Yes.
so, um, so interesting stuff there. That's two. I mean, that's two notable second things. I mean, that's we're this far into history and everything, and there's only been two Roman Catholic presidents now, and there's only been two presidents that hail from the state of Pennsylvania. Considering
The
they're
Catholic thing makes sense. Pennsylvania is the more
that
interesting of the two.
considering Pennsylvania was one of the 13 original colonies, it was a the hotbed of American independence. Philadelphia Independence Hall,
Hmm.
like you talked about your childhood and everything. I find that absolutely fascinating that nobody else in over 200 years from the state of Pennsylvania has risen to fame. Ohio, Virginia, Massachusetts are the what we call the big three. That's where most presidents are
Yeah.
from. Which the Ohio thing is completely bizarre to me. It makes sense that Virginia, Massachusetts, like that's okay. You could probably guess those pretty much, but I think if without knowing anything about where presidents are from, but knowing enough to be dangerous about the early onset of American history, yeah, one would probably guess like, oh yeah, there's probably been a lot of presidents from Pennsylvania, and there haven't been. There's two out of
And
47.
yeah, and I wonder if that really comes down to a lot of is the strong dichotomy of Pennsylvania. Because I mean, if you look at it, Pennsylvania, I mean, this is going to be a weird one. Uh, I actually heard this joke. Basically, it's not even really a joke. I went to a Gallagher show when I was a kid. Yes, the guy who squashed watermelons. But it's Pennsylvania is literally two cities in the forest in between, or Pennsylvania, depending on where
Yeah,
where you're referring to. But I mean, it's such a very different state where you're looking at again blue collar industrial city,
sure. Yeah,
Pittsburgh, and and Philadelphia, even and also the same, and then
the
very rural
religious
in between.
aspect
So it
too.
kind of like
The
they
religious,
beat
yeah.
up on each other.
Yeah, and the religious aspect of it too. You've got,
Hmm.
Roman Catholicism, but you also have Quakers, which also were, we've had,
Right.
but there were a few Quaker presidents too. Not,
Or were.
not most notably, and most recently was the most recent one was Richard Nixon. But I mean, before that, there were a lot of Quaker presidents. So it's, yeah, it's just, yeah, one of those interesting tidbits in history of where Pennsylvania just never seemed to really, get to the White House. Maybe we'll see some different things here in the next few years because I mean, we saw it in the last few elections. It's a pivotal battleground state. Um,
100%.
so maybe it'll be part of the presidential conversation more than just electoral votes, but maybe it'll be part of the electoral conversation a lot more, considering it is a battleground state as we kind of move forward in history the next 25, 50 years or so. So that'll be interesting to see. Well, cool. Well, that was our presidential trivia segment brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana and distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, the Firecracker, and the highly acclaimed Atabey, Byron, and now Alfonso lines from Selected Tobacco. Smoke what today and start living united. So, Joe, we were talked a lot about your career at Drew Estate and how you got into the cigar industry. So, walk us through what, the decision to leave and to transition into, into a, I mean, make no bones about it. I mean, this was a huge promotion from what you were doing, at least in title and well, I guess responsibility too, to your next role that you decided to take with Quality Importers.
Yeah. So, I mean, towards the middle of 2022, I kind of started feeling like, okay, I've done a lot of massive things at Drew Estate, but I also knew where I kind of hit a plateau. I said I had goals and aspirations and I wanted to try new challenges. And I wanted to see kind of what was out there and what opportunities for me to do my next level of development, right? To change my career, to develop, and get back to a really unique aspect and trying to say, okay, let me push myself. Let me see, hey, how can I do this? Can I go, go to the next level? So I started having some conversations with Alice Goldman, Michael Genie about, hey, I see what you guys are doing over at QI. It's interesting. You have brands that I love and use day in and day out, right? I mean, I still am and always will be a Zycar guy. I love it. And what's been missing for the past few years, it wasn't that the products were bad. I think that when acquisitions happen, a lot of assumptions get made, a lot of things are
Oh
said,
yeah.
and then and look, came coming from Drew, right? When Drew got
Yeah.
acquired by Swisher, the next day people started complaining about cigars, saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
it's not as good as it used to be." Yeah, though the overnight acquisition really changed the blend on the cigar that's
Uh,
been rolled,
it
6 months
in the
ago.
retail world that drove me absolutely bonkers.
Oh,
Drove
God
me
knows.
bonkers. Like
Right. So it's just, oh my God, it's crazy. Or like when it got, I remember we put a footband on the undercrown to make it match with the line, and then people are like, "Oh my God, the blend changed." You're like, we just made so they all look the same. What is wrong with you people? But that's what happens, right? Those people just assume they get scared of change. They think there's a reason behind it, and that's it. So I said, okay, I'm looking at your portfolio. I mean, I knew Zycar made up a majority of it, along with her other strong brands. And I mean, you have Palio, you have Humidor Supreme, like they dominate the humidor market. But what was missing was marketing, was messaging,
yeah.
was how do we get this out there? And I talked to Alex about it, and he's like, "Yeah, you're right. Like this is our need." And he was doing a lot of similar things to when I started at Drew Estate, right? I'm building out a team to kind of reshape what's going on here. What to really kind of focus in on the retooling and of the accessory space to really get people behind it and start reinvigorating the brands. So I said, okay, let me, you know what? Let's take a risk. Let's take a jump and let's try something. Because again, I wanted to try personal development. I wanted to see, can I do this? Can I do this without the massive infrastructure behind me and seeing what we got? So I made the jump over to Quality Importers, started in September of 22. And, that was the first thing, and they tell you that the accessory space is very different than the cigar industry. And you just like you kind of nod your head. You're like, yeah, but you know how this works. I worked retail. I kind of have an idea. No, it's massively different.
Sure.
It is very much not the same. And it hits you really quickly, but then you say, okay, let's get down to work. Let's start building out programs, understanding where we are, what do we need, how do we start really getting into this? Talking with Jimmy about products that are coming down the line, learning how they're ordered, how they come in, getting our current inventory positions, and just saying, okay, what can we do? What's next? What's coming? How do we start changing the narrative of the brands and start getting people talking about them and in a way that shifts what we used to do, and just getting them back into getting the negative perception away and just show them, look, at the end of the day, much like a cigar, right? If the product is good, then that's what matters. I mean, I'm still right here, my Palio Sienna right here, single torch. It's a fantastic lighter. My Zycar, you're using the XI2. I got my Chevy Chase one right here. And that was the other cool thing, right? Like they have capabilities that no one really had, with Swag Bunker. These are like, we can do whatever we want. We can print whatever we want. We can design whatever we want. Let's showcase that to the world. So that's kind of what I started doing was really learning. And that was a tremendous thing is really focusing on like, okay, you knew the cigar space at this point, start learning the accessory side of things.
So what you talked about how they're completely different worlds, and you,
Hmm.
you talked a little, gave a couple of examples there. But what's something like like you said you keep really tight, you kept tight, really tight friendships over at Drew, like on and Jack
Hmm.
before he departed and stuff like that. Like if they had said, "Hey man, what I'm thinking about jumping to the accessory space too," or everything. What's the one thing I need to know going into this? other than it being just insanely different? What was the
Okay.
it thing?
So you see I'm smoking a cigar, right?
Yes.
This burns, right?
Hmm.
At the end of the day, this is going to go into an ashtray that I eventually will dump into a trash can and get thrown away, right?
Sure.
Do you do that with a lighter?
Depends on the
Do you do
lighter.
that with a cutter?
No, right. Yeah, absolutely. You keep it. Yeah.
And yeah, you may throw a $3 plastic one away. You're not throwing $80 lighters away.
No.
You're not throwing even a $10 lighter. I mean, God knows, my polyos, my any of the things we do with Lotus, Vertigos, any of those. God knows they sit in my car until until I leave them out in the heat until like 120 degrees. But they're good. They last.
Sure.
How do I get either my product in front of someone to choose one over the other, which basically does the same thing, which is you cut a cigar and light a cigar? Or more importantly, how do I get them to create that demand, that instinctive, I want something more? And think about this too, right? At this point, especially because coming out of COVID, so many brands invested in swag and events that you're getting a lighter and a cutter free with any box. You box buy, you're getting something, you're going to get tools that are free to you. Well, what am I doing next? How do I get that? How do I make a consumer say, okay, I got this one for free, but what's different about mine? Oh, let me explain to you about Zycar's warranty, the lifetime warranty. Let me talk to you about why ours are different, how Jimmy designed it to have the ergonomics to be really comfortable in your hand, why this is, why it's this way, and really kind of talking through that process
Yeah.
about the depth of all of our brands, not just Zycar, but Humidor Supreme, about Polio. So these are the kind of brands that you really want to focus on and say, okay, why are they different? Why are they better? And why you should choose to buy another one, whether it be for style, whether it be for functionality. These are the different things you're really kind of homing in on.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that was something that noticeably different, with you and Danilo, is that y'all really took the time particularly to explain that. Like we had covered quality importers before. You got there, we had covered other accessory companies before you got there. And to me, like it was like, hey, look at this, and this is different because of this and stuff. And it was very high level descriptive, kind of scratching of the surface, but not like what makes it special. Like ST DuPont's probably the exception to that because they have a great story
Right.
with that. And but after that story, other than the differences in designs, there really isn't a lot of fluctuation there. I mean, they're beautiful pieces, and like the story is definitely worth telling 1,000 times. But like you said, they're like QI is not ST DuPont. Like there's so many things in the portfolio, but there's so much design and so much things that goes into every single different one. And y'all just, and I think that was really what was really interesting. Like behind the scenes, Jimmy was designing these incredible pieces for very specific reasons and tailored for very specific uh, whys and hows. Um, but nobody at the time was really delivering that message. And I think that that's something that you were very much a part of, and I very much appreciated, because it gave me a whole new appreciation for this world that's completely, well, it's connected, but very different than the premium cigar space. So very,
Yeah.
very interesting. All
And
right.
I mean, it really is interesting. And then to segment, one thing that I learned really at Drew, which they do really well, and it again helped frame my mindset of going forward, was really about segmenting your products by price, by type, by style, and say, okay, let's look at this. What do we have? What do we look at our portfolio? And when I was at QI, look at our entire portfolio of brands and products. Do we have a $10 triple torch? Do you have a angle flame, a dual flame angle? What's the price point? Is it $15? What's out there in the market? What's our competition like? And start really honing in on the gaps. Because when you find the gaps, that's when you can really grow a business. That's where the opportunity strikes. And I knew we spent a lot of time uh, focusing in on polio because that's where we see the space where, while we're not quite at cigar level where you're burning $10 at a time, you don't mind picking up a lighter for $10. You throw another one, you're gonna lose it. You don't care necessarily. It goes in your golf bag, it goes in your car, it goes in your pocket. You can have three or four of them and you're okay with that. And really kind of growing that space and building that up was really where we spent a lot of time and focus.
Hmm. For sure.
And I mean,
So,
that was just really, no, it was just some really, it was some unique periods there. So really kind of learning all of those products. And again, the amount of time that goes into design and production and samples and, kind of really going out there. But it also allowed the opportunity to do some really cool projects. Like, my baby that came from my time at QI was the perfect XI. When we did and it started as an exclusive for Smoke Inn because when I first got to QI, I said, okay, let me go sit down with Abe and talk to him about our products and how we can work together. And I remember because he's a big fan of Zycar, and he's just sitting there in the office and he's clicking, opening and closing the Zycar cutter just in his hand, like he's thinking. We're talking, I'm pitching him some ideas about Swag Bunker. And then he's like, have you guys ever done his and I talked to him also about like collectability. Like I maybe mentioned the Drew Estate cutters, like people would collect them and frame them. And he's like, have you ever done a closed back XI cutter? I said, no, that's a brilliant idea and let's make it happen. And then 6 weeks later, we started getting into design and into production, and that is kind of how it was born. And it was just a really cool thing to see that come to life, a really new design that came out of a really, was basically the pinnacle standard of a cutter in the cigar
right.
industry.
Talk about some like the power that that was able to wield in terms of like R&D. Like, again, this is different than like, hey, I have this idea for a cigar, and then you start, you work with the blender, like work with someone like Willie or somebody like that who starts pulling tobacco leaves and putting stuff together. I mean, that in itself is a whole other challenge,
Oh yeah,
and but that can even seem faster than moving. I mean, we're talking about industry, like in
right.
industrial parts, like actual pieces of metal and plastic that need to be made and modified and changed. And the fact that you guys were able to turn that around, I mean, that speaks to QI's infrastructure for one, but that was some really powerful movement there in a very short amount of time. So really bravo on being able to do that. So that's really cool.
It was,
Awesome.
it was, it was a really, I mean, again, the testament to their relationships that they have with their manufacturing partners and just the trust that they have with each other and to be able to work those around. Some take longer than others, but when you have a good team and build it out, it really can, you can execute and it can pull out some really cool things.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk about your next transition here in just a second. But before we go there, I wanted to touch on our charity segment, which you had mentioned Canines for Warriors earlier. I did a month-long fundraiser, and I just put the link in my sh in the chat, and I'll be sharing it on the short show notes as well too. But I'm doing a month-long fundraiser for Canines for Warriors in honor of my birthday last month. It'll conclude here in the next few days, but would wanted to we want to try and hit our goal for a great organization. This is something that my dad really got interested in when I started talking to him before he passed away this past year. And he knew that I was really, because my dad, as my audience knows, was a veteran, and so I was really getting hot into veterans affairs and veterans charities and things like that. And so Canines for Warriors was something I kind of cherry picked a long time ago, and I've run with it ever since. And it's something that I've an organization that I've loved. I love their mission. And then, because I love animals as well too, so it kind of killed two birds for one stone for me. And my dad was always a animal lover his entire life too, so he really thought that that was a really cool charity piece. So, Joe, and I want to express some gratitude here because you've really kind of adopted it as well with me, in our annual fun run of Chevy Chasedom and everything like that. But um, so let's talk about this little fun thing that we have a little bit more. I obviously am not a fan of Chevy Chase, but over the years you've really kind of taken the reins of this disagreement in our friendship, and taken it to some pretty unbelievable levels of razzing and also just you know, I mean, there's just no other way to say it. Just unbelievable levels of insanity. You know,
Would you like to describe a couple of
why?
the
Yeah,
levels first?
before we get to the levels, I've always wanted to ask you this, and I thought I would use the spotlight of my show to finally do this. Why? Why did you pick? Why was this the cross that you picked up and decided that like, hey, I'm gonna run with this bullshit?
I honestly think it stems from my general love of Christmas. And like growing up, I mean, you live in the Northeast, Christmas is big. You got snow. My mom, God bless her, had we lived in a three-story house. It was massive, and it was just, my mom, myself, and my brother. And she had 30 boxes, and I'm talking like U-Haul moving boxes full of Christmas decorations that we had to lug down every year and set up lights in the tree. My pop-up, who affectionately used to say, "Don't stand still or Terry would decorate you." You know what I mean? Like that's the kind of level of detail that she would go into. I mean, she loved it. It spread to me. I spread it down to my kids. I literally bought a fake mantle. Well, it's stone, but it's a mantle place with a fireplace in it in my house when I bought it because for one sole reason, which is stockings are hung by chimney with care. Not that we have a chimney, but we have an electric fireplace in the mantle. It's close enough. It's
Yeah,
Miami for crying out loud.
there you go. Exactly.
Not that we need the heat, but I need the mantle place. Like that's the level of commitment I have to this. I still get a real tree every year. I don't go out and cut it down, but we can only do so much. They literally air condition down here the tree lots, which is kind of hilarious. They're all
That's
enclosed
funny.
with giant amount of air conditioning. It's hilarious. But I love Christmas. I love Christmas movies.
Keep talking, Joe. I'm gonna
Christmas
step away
vac
for just a second, okay?
Yeah, you're good. So to me, it's one of these really joyous things in my life. I like spreading it to my kids, Santa, everything, the whole nine yards. And when I find out that my dear friend, Bear Duplessis, does not like Christmas Vacation, let alone Chevy Chase, who I find hilarious, and not just Christmas Vacation, but all the vacation movies, regular vacation, European less so. The European's like the bottom tier for me. Christmas Vacation, obviously. Bear, we still have yet to watch Vegas Vacation together. We need to make this happen. It I think maybe we'll plan this for PCA this year. I think we still have to get that screening underway. But my point being is these are traditions. I find Caddyshack. I even like Nothing But Trouble. Like people absolutely hate that movie, and I can see why for certain other reasons. It is a weird movie. But I find Chevy Chase hilarious. Fletch. My God, Fletch. Even Fletch lives. These bring joy to me. So when I find out that you don't like Chevy Chase, and I don't understand it, because it's like saying someone doesn't like Christmas. So
Wow.
this is just now you're like crossing lines, and now I have to say, you know what? It is my mission in life now to show Bear the error of his ways, to do the Ebenezer Scrooge. The three spirits can do it in one night. I can make this happen. So now that has become my mission. And thus, every year, I politely, kindly, gently try to guide you to the light.
Gently. Okay. There's a
Gently,
stretch.
sweetly, I don't know how to else to describe it, is through mirth and merrymaking that I try to bring you to where we go and bring us to the light that is the Christmas Vacation. And in the spirit of all this, and like the season, we do it for charity
Hmm.
because that's what this is about. It is about giving. It is about sharing with others. And
it's
we've
also
done
the
so.
only
And look,
reason I would do it. But yeah.
I know. Well, yeah, but again, this is called marketing. I have to give you an incentive to do what I want you to do, right? The call to action is, Bear, I want you to watch this movie. All right, how do I get you to do it? Let me bribe you by making you feel bad because we're going to donate to charity. And you know what? We've donated now thousands of dollars to charity
The Canaan's
by
followers,
watching
man.
this movie.
Exactly.
So
Yes, absolutely.
look at the good we've done. And eventually, I will
Hmm.
turn that cold heart of yours to the light, and you will see it
It's
because I'm sure. Go ahead.
no, it's literally the best thing that's ever come out of this trashy movie is the amount of money that we've donated to charity. So
That's pretty good. I still think the your one-on-one interview with Chevy Chase was pretty good.
yeah, I mean, there's been some epic gifts. There's been a blow up doll. There's an autographed
Not not
photo.
that blow up doll. Not that blow
Yeah,
up doll for all you sick people out there.
yeah, no,
I did not.
yes,
There's no like Chevy Chase in lingerie that's floating around Bear's house.
no.
It
It's
was
just
just
a
a.
Clark
It was a
Griswold,
travel. He's like
right?
a travel buddy.
Yeah, a travel buddy, a Clark Griswold travel buddy. Yeah, yeah, it's insane. It's actually over here, in storage here in my studio. I
He's
still have
kept it.
I have they were gifts, Joe. You know, I despite your opinion about my of my love for you know my non-love for Christmas, I absolutely do adore Christmas, and gifts are taken to cart. I say this every year. I give a little speech when we do the viewing, and I think it's absolutely abhorrent but beautiful at the same time, like how my friends decide to gather together to make me miserable. But we do it together, out of love and generosity, and I think that that's it, it's it that part has been very enjoyable. I do because you guys allowed the license, you guys allowed give me license. We sit there and we watch the movie, and I
Mhm.
trash it the whole time. Nobody says anything, and everyone's praising it while I'm the one, the lone, the lone wolf while I trash it and everything. But it's fun. It's an entertaining evening. I did think it's hilarious. John McTavish last year, he's like, Bear, how many years have you done this? Because he's like, I think it was only his like second time attending the viewing.
Mhm.
And I said, I think this is the fifth year now. And I think this year will be number six. And he's like, "So you've seen the movie how many times now?" I was like, "Well, this would be my sixth. The first I thought my first time was my first and
Right.
last time, but no. So this would be my sixth." And he's like, "You've seen it more times than I have." And I'm like, "God damn it. That's terrible."
Uh, it's fantastic. It really is. And again, you're getting there. And it's almost like, Rocky Horror Picture Show at this point because we've really just turned it
Yeah.
into we're all chiming in on the lines. We're doing the jokes. We're not throwing spoons at the screen, but we're close.
Yeah.
We all get our moose head glasses out, and drink some eggnog. It's really turned into a whole festivity.
Yeah.
This is a thing.
I got in the mood the other, a couple, the last couple years I've been drinking eggnog, which I enjoy
Yeah.
anyway. So I mean, I've gotten the spirit. But it all came to it. I think the very best gift that was given was the 2 minute interview with Chevy Chase. And God, what a shit show that was, just getting that on the air, like the
I
logistics of
appreciate
it.
you because you were in the middle of moving. There was like
Yeah,
800 things going on, and I'm just like, oh God, it's just because I really just I didn't care about setting it up because I set you up with like it was a what's it called? A convention was doing it where they
yeah,
were doing
yeah,
virtual conventions, and I didn't care about the money. I just wanted you to actually sit there and have to actually talk to the man that you
yeah,
absolutely truly abhor.
yeah,
So I was like, I was like, oh God, let me hope it makes it done. Let's see if it happens. And again, like we had to like get it all to work out. And then you did. You were graced. I haven't even been graced with Chevy Chase's presence,
yeah. Well,
but you did. You got to ask him hard-hitting questions.
I did. I said, why are you not funny? He's like, oh, you little shit. He called me a little shit. Um, and we got cut off before we could get into real juicy bits. But like that was the agreement. It was like, Barry, are you gonna really tell him how you feel? And I was like, I'm absolutely gonna tell him how I felt. And I got to tell Chevy Chase to his face how I felt that he was not funny at all. And it was glorious. It was glorious in its moment. So, and he got to throw a little jab at me too. So that was it was nice.
We should post that. We should post that in the chat so other people can enjoy the moment.
Yeah, I need to bring it back up and get it. So I think Coop has it probably saved somewhere where he probably replays it frequently and enjoys it, probably a lot more than
Yes.
most people. So, but yeah, no, it's been a fun it's been a fun exercise in charity for me, and I know you guys get a kick out of it too, just because I know you all really really enjoy the film
Well,
for
it really
reasons that
also
I will never.
speaks to yeah, and it speaks to Christmas because it's you know what it is? It's traditions.
Hmm.
We all do weird things that are all unique to our families because that's a tradition. Whether it be somebody makes a special dish that we do a certain thing. My wife's family, they do Noche Buena, which I still don't quite fully understand because there's some logistics about Santa and other things that I just haven't quite figured out, but it's okay. That's what they choose to, that's how they do it. But it's just, that's what we do. And when you can build a tradition, whether it be with your family or your friends, it's special. Whether or not you like the movie, you know Christmas is coming, and I'm going to harass you about it. But at the end of the day, it makes it a little bit more special.
You say so. But
You like
we'll
it.
we'll have we'll have details in the future for the I get this is this six or
Coming
seven?
soon.
Is this six or seven?
I think this is six.
I think
I'm
this is
pretty sure
six.
it's six.
Yeah, the sixth annual viewing of it. I'm gonna drink some more caffeine this year. I definitely don't want to watch it 1.5 times again. At least in a single round. God bless. That
Well,
was
this year, I think we're also going to expand. I think it's time. It's evolution. We've done it. I mean, I've given cutters, we've done other things. I think this year, it's time you meet Mr. Nick Papagiorgio and we do Vegas Vacation as a part two. I think
okay.
as
We
a
could we
pre
we
as a
can talk
pre
about that.
PCA as a pre PCA trip. I know Coop is sitting there. He's been wanting it for a long time, and I think we need to look at it. Or we could do a live screening at the media compound. There's two different options we can do here. But let's look at some logistics. Let's put some things together, some pads of paper, and we can make this a nice celebration as well.
Yeah, let's talk more about it. I'm more apt. I would love to do because I would love the opportunity to do a live screening at some point. I think that'll be like that part would be fun to sit in a room with you guys. But I
Yes,
just with PCA and everything, I know schedules are really tight, and it's always a
I
log
know.
jam and
But
stuff.
then maybe we do we'll figure it out. Hell, even if we have to negotiate, we'll try to figure out a flying in a day early or something before the show starts.
Yeah,
Just putting ideas out there into the ether. Let's see what we can make happen.
sounds good. Sounds good. We'll figure it out, Joe. Just for you and all the wonderful charitable aspects that have come from this. I'll subject myself to it. Did you hear that, Coop? I'll watch Vegas Vacation with you, you fucking son of a bitch. Jesus. Oh God. Ugh. So so not looking forward to this. But there you go. In the interest of charity. But let's go back to move back to your career here. So like again, you spent nearly 6 years at Drew, and then a short time at QI, and then you decided to take another opportunity with your current company, which is Casa de Montecristo. I mean, before you talk about the transition, I mean these are three very very powerful companies in the space of cigars. So I mean, this isn't. I mean, you didn't start small, and you didn't. I mean, this has been big, monumental places that you've kind of hung your hat, Joe. I mean that in itself is pretty damn impressive. I mean, is that I mean, over the years, I mean, is that have you kind of ever reflected on that? Like, wow, like I've worked for three of the biggest and baddest, you
Yeah,
know.
and I mean, been blessed to work with these unique opportunities. I'll say it was funny. Something that it was a manufacturer. I won't to say who. Before I started Drew, I told them where I was going. We were just doing some goodbyes. I talked to them, and they said, "Why are you going to Drew in digital marketing? Like they're already the best at it. So what are you going to do? Like that's going to be like that? How are you going to make it any better? How are you going to do that?" And that motivated me in a really strong way because it's like just because they're maybe at the top of their game now does not mean where they could be or where they will be. And you want to learn from the best. You want to push yourself. You don't want to go somewhere small, and I mean you can and then build up. There's definitely power in that as well. But I want to learn from the best and I want to say I can do better.
Yeah, I mean that
And
certainly is a more traditional route, starting
right.
in a smaller space and working your
Yeah.
way up.
And a
But
lot, I mean, and there's nothing to knock that, right?
no,
Everybody starts somewhere. But for me, it's saying, for them to, for someone to tell me, hey, don't do that. Like that, you're making a mistake because you're not going to get any better. And then I just reflect on that and I say, well, look at my time there. Look at what innovations have changed and what I personally affected and worked with the team and what we did as a team could do to that space and completely revolutionized how things, how products can be brought to market or how people
right.
can perceive the digital space.
And that was a huge risk
And
for Drew too, because I mean, again, you're at the time,
mhm,
in all fairness, I mean, you're an unknown, right? You're an
right.
unknown quantity, and for them to take a risk, like you said, they're at the apex, right?
Mhm.
And then to
I
take
was
a
an
risk on,
engineer.
yeah, to take a risk on an engineer to do social media and stuff, and then you to accomplish those things, like you said, you took that challenge head on. I mean, it's huge, huge.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is okay, so let me try what's next. Let me see what's out there. Let me do better. And when I got to spend my time at QI, I was able to drop things. So, work on some products, work on messaging, being able to deploy a trade program, which didn't really exist in the accessory space, doing all those things together. And then I say, okay, well, I want to go. I want to keep growing. I want to know what's next. And there was an opportunity that opened up at Casa de Montecristo. And I said, one of the things that I do miss and I have missed was back to my early days as that cigar geek when I would be working retail. And I was still working I was working as an engineer, but I would work remotely. And the shop just hired me on. They're like, "Do you want to sell cigars part time? You're really, you talk to the customers anyway. You're engaging with them. You're telling them brands to smoke, all stuff, and we need some help." So I love talking to people about cigars and tobacco and educating them. The best thing, and a lot of associates and people who work in retail talk to you about, one of your favorite things is to be able to turn someone on to the cigar that they love, is to be able to teach them, say, okay, here, you smoke this, but I think you'll love this. So I know your portfolio. You trust me because I'm your tobacconist to that what you smoke. So let me try this on me. Try this cigar. Let me see what you think. If you don't like it, don't buy it again. You don't trust me. But let me try that game. And that is a fun thing. That is a high that you get when you sell someone a cigar that they love.
Oh, 1,000%.
And it's awesome. And I do love those days. I think back in those days where you're hanging in the shop playing dominoes with guys. I had shout out to Trey at Cigar Mojo who literally sold multiple boxes of Neanderthal by literally screaming Neanderthal at customers as they walked in the door. He's a madman, but he's one of the most brilliant. He's a brilliant retail mind. He's awesome. Working with my coworkers out in Price, working under Vince at B&B, where Roma Craft would make up the majority of sales in the store, and you're sitting there like, wait, this makes no sense whatsoever. But again, to the customers and to the training people, it's like, wow, that was what we did because you're satisfying that need. So I said, I like those retail days, and then to be able to work with a brand and a company like Casa de Montecristo, which has the weight of Tabacalera behind it and is a growing business and really focuses on not the traditional tobacconist route, right? Like these stores, they don't discount. We don't discount here at Casa at all. But what we do have is a loyalty program and being able to explore that, being able to build upon that, to grow it. That's a really cool thing. And that was things that I did at Drew when I was working with Drew Diplomat and other programs and really delving into the data. And it's not the one-on-one interaction with a customer that I would have at like a retail store, but overseeing all of our stores and then saying, okay, what do my customers smoke? What do they like? Well, I think they like this brand, they smoke this brand, but I think they'll like this cigar based on their habits. Let me look at that information. And I got to, I first spoke with Brad Winstead when he was still, CEO of Casa, and I spoke with him right at the time, and he's like, "I want to shoot an interview with Sherry Sininsky," and I'm like, "Okay, I don't know Sherry that well. I met her once before when I was with Drew and we were planning an event." And I didn't really know her that well. I'm like, okay, maybe he just wants me to interview with, his number two and just before, anything else. So I'm like, okay. And the next day, Brad moves on. They get the announcement that everybody is now shifted. Brad is now CEO of JR. Davide is now taking over as CEO of AUSA. And Sherry's now is promoted to acting CEO of Casa de Montecristo. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but okay. So I sit down with Sherry and we talk about it. And in my interview with her, what she really expressed to me is not just about like, okay, we don't discount, we're higher end, all this stuff. What she really intimated to me, and this is why I chose to come to Casa, is about the experience of our customers. We do events that you don't see anywhere else. High-end dinners that are closed off with the manufacturers, unique experiences where we're talking about bringing in hot dog carts, and we're doing some other things because we got a JD event. We're going to have, it's going to be New York theme and there's graffiti on the walls. Really cool things that we can do together. We host premier events that are massive, that multi vendors, but they're again focused experience first, not sales first. So like when you come to the Tampa Bash, you're at the Hard Rock poolside smoking cigars. Or what I did this year where we moved the Texas Cigar Festival location to this amazing indoor venue, which for Texas is great because God knows it gets super hot,
Yeah, I was gonna
but
say.
it's all Texas themed. We're talking, this is it's actually it's a nightclub by night, but it holds 4,000 people, but it lives and breathes Texas. Like you feel like you walk in, your belt buckle's two sizes too small. You need to upgrade here. But it's a really, great look and feel that shines for our customers. And how do you make it better? How do we make it unique? And that's what we could do at Casa. So I said, you know what? This feels right. This is a company that gets it, gets that consumer mindset of how do we give a good experience to our guests first. We can worry about the dollars later. We can do whatever we can. We want to focus solely on the experience. And that's really, really important. And so that's why I made the decision and got me back into the retail game a little bit of, okay, let me get back in, get my feet, my hands dirty selling cigars to people and getting them excited about it and really playing these unique things. Like, it's fun.
Yeah, I think that for me in the time that at Casa de Monte Cristo that I've been able to learn from you is just how I think how skewed I think the outside perspective is if you've never been to a Casa de Monte Cristo, which I've been to one, so I lump myself in that group, of not having had that experience. I just assumed it was another manufacturer store, similar to a CI or, even a Davidoff store. Um,
Hmm.
and where those companies, CI is a little bit different, because, it's while they definitely have a lot of STG and forged presence there, they do obviously sell a lot more brands and everything, but Davidoff is definitely Davidoff focused. Well, they still sell some other things, but it's very Davidoff focused. Um, that's what I thought Casa de Monte Cristo was. But when you and I were talking about, kind of, some of the buying that you were doing, at PCA this last year, it really kind of opened up my eyes. It's like, oh, okay, so you guys have a pretty, and then I learned more about the Casa de Monte Cristo program where you have like all these shop exclusives. So explain that to me, because I think that that's a really bizarre concept for, Rocky, for example, or, even, someone like Robert Holt, which a very small brand, or Crowned Heads or anything like that, not only selling to you all, but also partnering with you on these shop exclusives that you can only get these specific cigars, Drew Estate. You can only get these specific cigars at Casa de Monte Cristo locations, and sometimes it's even more exclusive than that. It's this specific one, right? So, um, I mean, that's strange. I mean, for competitors collaborate with competitors in this way. I mean, talk about how that works and why it works and why it makes sense for all parties involved.
Well, you have to look at it like this. First of all, I mean, luckily we are a large company. You have 17 retail stores, plus our franchisees, Abe with Smoke Inn, Sam up at Casa in Chicago, Churchill's out in Arizona, plus the two, stores that out in Las Vegas. And so we have a tremendous reach to begin with. But beyond that, just our customers are different. They have expectations. We don't discount. We have customers that love super premium cigars. They love the $15 plus cigars. So we're talking to someone who's a little bit different than the average brick and mortar store. And these are customers that our manufacturer partners do want to speak with and engage with. And we again want to offer them something that's very unique. So we talk with, and we're very selective. We don't just say, okay, hey, anybody and anybody can make a cigar for us. We're not that way. We don't just pick, okay, here's the Coronas and these weird off small tiny sizes that that some people do. No, no, we want strong sizes like the Robusto Grande. It's a fantastic size, the 5 by 52. You know, you have the Drew Estate, the a box press torpedo. You got a fantastic smoke there. It's a 6 by 46. It's unique, but it's a really strong size and really amplifies the flavor of the Vitola. We test them. What I'm smoking now, the Wabash Cannonball. Basically it's a little bit larger of a Corona, but Corona Gorda, but it's a fantastic smoke. And this is the kind of things that we want. We want really unique sizes. And not just, hey, some of them can be line extensions, which, hey, they're lending their strong brands that perform well in Casa to us. Like, hey, we won an ALR2, which is a great seller, or a Rose of Sharon. Or we have something unique with Crowned Heads, where we do Wabash Cannonball, a brand that's unique to Casa. And again, it amplifies that experience with us. So it benefits. And we can say, hey, do we want it to be a limited edition, a yearly limited edition like we do with Porchetta, where that only is, it's limited to 800 boxes this year? Or it's something that's regular production that we can have all the time. One of the top sellers in our company is actually a Casa exclusive, which is the Oliva Series V. It's a round. It's a Pareo press, and it's not box press, but it's a fantastic sell. It's one of our top sellers, and customers like it because it's unique to us. And that's something that they coalesce around. They form an identity really with this. That's like, okay, I'm a Casa customer. I want something that's different that I can only get here. And for our manufacturer partners to be able to talk to them, to engage with them, they really get behind it. And that's why, retail, manufacturers want to partner with us. They want to do more. And we take our time with it. We don't just rush stuff out because we want the product to be right, because that has to match our brand.
So how do you kind of look at, so I think so instead of what I was kind of suggesting a moment ago, like looking at competition on the shelf, you guys probably view competition differently in the sense of my competition is that brick and mortar down the street, um, or from a nationwide perspective, this other brand like a CI that has a lot of stores, or Davidoff that has a lot of stores and everything. So what, you know, is that fair, Joe? Like, is that something that you guys look at when you look at the landscape of like, okay, this is where we're gonna put up our next new location, and this is why we feel like that we have a customer base that's already waiting there.
To some degree, but not necessarily. Again, when we look at, say, a new location, if we are looking to, we're looking to expand, and we are looking and keep, constantly evolving and looking for new opportunities. It's really kind of what's the right fit. Yes, the markets are some degree, but or is it maybe that what are the offerings in that area? It's not about, okay, who's down the street from us, because again, we are very unique within the brick and mortar space. I don't necessarily want to compete. I don't view competition within our city like, oh, what's that guy doing? He's running 20% off. Oh, he's doing this, or he's giving free cigars away, all these other X, Y, and Z things. We're not looking at that level of like to that microcosm, because again, it comes back to what is the experience that we can offer our guests? Oh, well, when we look at a location, is there maybe a convention center nearby? Is there a steady flow of traffic? What are the unique offerings or what kind of consumers do we want in? All of our locations, going forward are going to have bars. Obviously, that's a huge aspect of that. And what can we offer those what can we offer those customers that's unique, be either a barrel pick that we've done or that we will be doing, or bringing in that experience to them to educate and to have strong tobacconists through and strong promotions that really kind of speak to these customers. I mean, we've given away crazy things like we just did recently. It was a trip to Patagonia to go Argentinian stag hunting. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where else do you see that kind of stuff? It's
I mean,
strange, but
that's Bitcoin level
well, it's
uniqueness.
yeah, and we do that every month. Like, we get to do some really fun things. Like, hey, we just gave away last month $10,000 in gold bars, along with a beautiful custom humidor from Oliva, along with 50 cigars. Like, this is a really cool thing that we can give away. Like, that we put together and said, hey, here's an offering. No other brick and mortar does that. So that's why we don't necessarily look at that level, because again, we are different. It's drilling in on where our guests. And then so then when we look at you say things like expansion, it's like, okay, if we're going to go into a new location, does the demographics of that area match up to what our customers are? Do we see an opportunity to give this area an offering that they've never seen before? And that by nature is going to bring it. And so, there's some things in the works that are going to be really cool, that are going to be different, that you don't see that often.
Mhm.
And we were excited about it.
It's my last question before we kind of do wrap up their show with our fun, or the rest of our fun segments here, Joe. But so again, to that point about looking at things a little bit with a different perspective, one of the companies that is kind of really tapping into the cigar lounge experience and market is this brand that's seemingly coming out of nowhere the last half decade, which is El Septimo. They're starting to license their name to lounges. They're starting to open specific lounges. Um, you know, is that something you guys have your eye on, or are you so forgive the terminology, Joe, because I don't want to make it sound like very negative as this term seems to say, but are you so self-absorbed with what y'all's mission and what you're trying to accomplish that like the peripheral doesn't necessarily matter?
No, I mean, I think, look, end of the day, we're always watching what's going on in the industry. We talk to our manufacturing partners, we talk to retailers that we know, I talk to the friends, I talk to reps, I talk to everyone. I say, what's out there? What are people doing? And just to get a gauge, right? See where we are versus, what we're seeing out in the rest of the industry. And yes, you see El Septimo opening a bunch of lounges. And it's great for them. It's great for their business that they're growing. I appreciate anybody who's opening lounges. But licensing their name is one thing, and it's a little bit different. But from us, we really want to focus in on from the ground up. We are going to, from the layout of the store, the lounge, the experience, that's where we really want to focus in on and build that art from the top to the bottom from ourselves. I don't know if this is fully answering your question, but it's really about staying true to who we are and our mission, because that's what's been successful these past 7 years,
Hmm.
and really hammering that home and then elevating it to the next level. Stop, again, it's never about resting again with on your laurels and just saying, hey, that we're good enough. That, we're doing all right. Everything's good. You always want to say, how can we do it better? How can we keep improving ourselves? And going to looking at what others are doing, their lounges, their offerings, and saying, hey, this is pretty unique. How can we adapt this that fits who we are, right?
Right.
That falls in line with us, because you're never going to do everything right, and everything is like bits and pieces of what you can take from that and the other. And people are like, "Oh, are you stealing ideas from everyone else?" It's like, no, it's just collectively saying, "Okay, this is smart. I recognize that. I'll admit to it." Like I always will say where I get ideas from. and then how, but it's never like a straight clone. I want to take a little bit of this and I'm going to give it a flip it on its head, add on to it, and change it so it doesn't even resemble how it originally looked, but the base kernel was there. And
Gotcha.
that's things that we want to, and that's just not even cigar retail, really. There's different, I'm looking at all retail industry. This year was very interesting for a lot of not just cigar retailers. But, we're coming out of the boom, we're coming out of, things, and it's like, how do you innovate to survive? And then everyone else is down too. I mean, you're looking at Starbucks is down, but so you start saying, okay, what are they doing? How are they adapting? And how can we take some of that and bring it to Casa?
Gotcha. Well, Joe, I really appreciate this kind of deep dive into your history and your journey and what you're doing now at Casa de Montecristo. It's been a fantastic conversation thus far. So we're gonna end tonight with a couple of our fun segments. With this next segment being brought to you by Artista Cigars, which is truly the last hidden gem of the Dominican Republic. With nearly 70 years of rolling cigars, the family behind Artista it believes in honoring their long-held tradition of handmade artistry. Artista's blends include factory-exclusive tobaccos and front marks for every budget. In fact, Artista Cigars has one of the most varied portfolios on the market today. There's something for everyone at Artista. Now, if you're like me and you can never decide on what to smoke, Artista's a perfect breath of fresh air because I can literally take something from any box that Artista has to offer, and I know that I'm going to get something truly special. So this is our this or that segment. So Joe, so this is a pretty rapid fire, pretty basic. I'm going to give you a choice between two things, and you pick one and you tell me. We might dive into why, but it's meant to be kind of a rapid fire. So some are
Okay.
cigar related, some are not, and you'll enjoy some of these. So let's start with something cigar related. Churchill or Bellicoso?
Churchill.
Ooh, I did not see that coming. Okay, nice.
Really?
Yeah. I'm a big Churchill fan. I think it's an underrated size that nobody does anymore, just because no one wants to smoke a long cigar anymore. So it's really great.
But then again, you start looking at the value, man, the value proposition,
Yeah.
you know. It's the same reason there's Gordo smokers, right? They want to get their bang for the buck.
Yeah, the 1935 Nicaraguan from Monte Cristo Churchill, fucking money. Absolutely. That's so
Great
goddamn good.
cigar. Great smoke.
All right. So you and your family are big Disney fans. So Disney World or Disneyland?
I have to say Disney World because I've yet to go to Disneyland.
Oh, okay. All right.
You have to, but then I'll delve into this a little more. I have cousins, my cousin's out in California. Her family's also a Disney family. But you know, Disneyland is kind of that you can just kind of show up and it's a regulars park. Disney World's an experience, brother. That's like you have to take a boat over to cross over into Magic Kingdom, or you take the monorail. Like it is separate from everything else. So it's about the experience.
I was down in Orlando for a conference this past summer, and we had a one of the convention parties was on Disney World grounds, and so
Mhm.
I finally got to say that I've been to Disney World, which was nice.
It's
So,
cool. It's a cool spot.
all right, so I I know this terminology is probably going to be a little bit blasphemous, but we're going to talk about Disney movies, right? So I'm going to
Mhm.
say characterize this as Disney classic, which is
Okay.
pre 2000, okay?
Okay.
Just really not it's an abomination of Disney's history, but that's fine. So
Yeah.
Disney classic films pre 2000 or post 2000, and Pixar is included in this category.
Oof. I'd say, I mean, it's got to be pre. There's some bangers in there. Including Pixar. I mean, you got Toy Story in there still. So you still get enough of that. You got Lion King. You go back. I mean, you can even get things that look. I love on a bad, shamefully Robin Hood. That is just,
Oh God, yes, yes.
and
Robin
like,
Hood.
I know people are like, oh, but it's taking animation from Jungle Book and all this other stuff. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Oodalali, oodalali.
Well,
Oh,
um, yes, I love Robin Hood. Some of those classics. I even really like one of my favorites is it's kind of this hidden gem that was made in the 1980s. It was the Great Mouse Detective.
oh, great
Great,
movie.
great.
I
I
mean,
love.
there's just so many. It's just, and I love. the old school hand drawn animation, like with how they could breathe life into that. And it's amazing what you can do now with, I mean, obviously in animation, but just to be able to sketch work and how they could bring that to life and just bring those characters and just to live and breathe through that is just impressive.
Well, we saw
Like
some
it's,
really great stuff there in the 90s, and I know we're kind of contemporaries, Joe. I know you're a few years younger than me, but the 90s were really really interesting because you saw the first iterations of new technology kind of come in, but it was still that hand-drawn animation. Beauty
yeah,
and the Beast, Lion King was such an epic event. Um, you know, you know, at least animation wise and stuff. And
right,
again, to limp in there, if we're talking about Pixar, I mean, Toy Story was an
right.
absolute evolution in movie making, to say nothing about just animation, but just movie making in general. So it just, yeah, there's some stuff. I do love some post 2000 stuff, but yeah, it's pre 2000 for me too. So, all right, let's talk about two states that you hail from. Okay, so this is state specific, not necessarily where you live or grew
Yeah.
up and lived. Pennsylvania or Florida.
Oof. This is tough. And I'll say why. Pennsylvania will always be my home. That's where I was, born and raised, and will have this accent and fond memories to this day. But I don't ever see myself living there again. I'm not saying I'm going to live in Florida the rest of my life, but I do not miss shoveling my car out at 5 in the morning with snow, potholes that can dent your rims because of how deep they are. And there's nothing that beats having a cigar in the middle of December on your back patio when everyone else is freezing cold. So, and look, at the end of the day, too, Florida, it's where my family, it's where, I had my family.
Hmm.
I met my wife here. I've had my kids here. Again, I don't know if I'm going to stay here my whole life, but this is my home now.
Gotcha. All right, so let's go specific to city. Just as an overall experience, not necessarily to live, since you
Yeah.
kind of you kind of use that on this last one, but just as an experience. Philadelphia or in Miami?
Philadelphia, Miami's horrible. It's not even close. I do not there I can't. I don't Philadelphia has so many amazing things for me. It's just between the culture, the history, the food, the diversity, the differences that I just I can walk around Philadelphia. You have the grid, you can just walk the entire city. Miami's not that way. It's too sprawling, it's too
Yeah.
much. And not I I like Florida outside. I don't live in Miami proper. I live south of Miami in Homestead, but it's not even there's not even a question on that one. It's Philadelphia without question.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia is that quintessential East Coast city that you can, like you said, you can walk, and you
Yeah.
can, you can, take you can take, public transportation and stuff and get around and see the sights and things like that. Like you said, Miami's just not, just
It's not
infrastructurally,
conducive to that.
yeah, it's just not that way. All right, so you mentioned food, cheesesteak or a Cuban sandwich.
Cheesesteak. Cheesesteak. That's
All
just
right.
and you get a good cheesesteak, man. It that for me. And honestly, I don't even do a Cuban. I do a pan con bistec down here. That's just it'd be my preference. I will say the little potato straws are just that's good texture. Yeah, but a cheesesteak is just where it's at, and especially in for those out there, because and Terrence Riley, this goes to you. A cheesesteak should be chopped, not sliced. I know I'm going to get into that. That'll bring its own spawn of debate, but that is what I prefer. Like you go to a Jim's, you get a nice chop on that. The cheesesteak is juicy, is delicious, so good.
All right. Best leftover Thanksgiving food.
It's just tough. It's not really leftover, but I'm just a pie man. I can eat pie all day long. So give me pumpkin pie. Give me that slice that right out of the fridge where it's just like
Eat with the
it's been
spoon.
in there for so good. Put a little cream on that all day long.
There you go. I love me some pie for sure. All right.
Yeah.
Cranberry sauce, chunky or canned?
I'm not a huge cranberry sauce guy, but canned. It's just tradition.
Yeah, you got to get the ripples in, man. They
Yeah,
perfectly you can perfectly slice on the diameter. It's
got
perfect.
that
It's
little
beautiful.
wiggle going. It's
Yeah,
nice.
it's gorgeous. All right. Uh, so to our point earlier,
Mm.
Vegas or Christmas Vacation, which one?
It's Christmas Vacation. That's the better film. It's the better story. Vegas has some amazing side characters that are not directly family. You have Wallace Shawn as the blackjack dealer, who's has some great lines, which you'll soon discover. It has its moments. And it has some great set pieces, but there's nothing like the quintessential family man that is Clark W. Griswold trying to save Christmas and make it perfect forever.
I want to see how much love this love for Chevy Chase goes. Steve Martin or Chevy Chase?
You're trying here, Bear,
Yeah,
but it's going to be Chevy.
gonna be
Now,
okay.
it's going to be Chevy. And I love Steve. I love Comic Steve, like The Jerk is an amazing film. I love Family Man Steve in his 90s days. You got Father of the Bride,
Oh, fuck yeah.
Parenthood.
Yeah.
I watch Only Murders in the Building religiously with my wife. That is a great freaking show. Love it. I'm actually going to probably go try to see him and Martin Short doing their tour. He's coming down here, I think, in January. I'm going to try and go see those guys. But you cannot beat Fletch, Vacation. Like, there's just an everymanness about Chevy. That's just it ties to my core.
All right. So you talk about the everyman, Bill
Hmm.
Murray or Chevy Chase?
You're really trying me here.
I'm really trying. There's three more just after this. I'm just
Oh
letting
my
you know.
God, this is I think I'm gonna have to go Bill on this one.
Oh,
I do.
yes.
You're not. Don't calm yourself. Calm yourself.
I'll
Bill
take a win,
has.
baby. I'll take a
You'll
win,
take a
baby.
win. Okay, that's fine. Bill has a really good second half of his career in terms of body of workness.
Mhm.
That with the Wes Anderson, where he is just. I mean, look, Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. You know, that's
Mhm.
just fantastic. He's had a secondary rebirth, a reessence. Lost in Translation is a beautiful film. Bill, it does have a second half of the career, which Chevy had Community, which ended on kind of a sour note. But just saying, they're the apples and oranges, but I think Bill had a better film career.
Okay. John Candy or Chevy Chase?
You're gonna make me respect a dead man? You're gonna make me go up against a dead man here?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
There's another dead guy too. So just
oh
FYI.
Jesus. There, this isn't fair. Like, and now you're making me like disrespect the dead. Ugh, ugh, this is tough. I don't have to say Candy.
Nice. Okay. Martin Short or Chevy Chase?
Oh, that's Chevy without question. I love Martin, and Martin's good, but he just doesn't have the body of work. I
Yeah,
mean,
I didn't think you were gonna
it's
pick
a
Martin Short. If you didn't pick Steve Martin, you weren't gonna pick Martin
it
Short.
was yeah, it's a body of work question. Again, I love Martin Short. I love Inner Space. Great movie. Plays a great character. Again, love him on Only Murders in the Building. It's fantastic, but just not. It's a body of work question. Martin doesn't have it.
So speaking of body work, this was unfortunately cut short. Much more, even more than so than John Candy. So John Belushi or Chevy Chase.
Chevy. John is amazing, right? Animal House, Blues Brothers, iconic,
Hmm.
but just cut too short. He didn't get again, you know, you could say it's like, he had two great seasons, but he's not a Hall of Famer. You don't get in the Hall of
That's
Fame for two great seasons.
that's the one career really wish I would have been able to see. Like, would that have been able to translate in a little bit older of an age, like a Steve Martin, like a Bill Murray? Like, would there have been an interesting second act to that? You know,
I definitely think there would have. I think he was smart enough. He understood the comedy. He got it. But some of that also is he is who he is because of how, his personal demons, right?
Yeah,
You get same with like Chris Farley, Richard Pryor. Like you have guys that just really live the life hard. And that's kind of why they shine so bright,
yeah.
unfortunately.
All right. No more Chevy Chase ones. Here we go. Let's go back to cigars. Maduro or natural wrapper?
This is tough because immediately my mind oddly goes to Padron, where I like the natural better, but I'll go Maduro.
Socks or no socks?
Sucks.
Is that like socks around the house? Like you'll wear socks around the house
Oh
as
no, I don't
opposed
wear socks around the. I don't do socks around the house, but I'm not a. A, I
as
cannot. I'm not one of those people who does shoes without socks. That's just weird to me.
okay.
Um, and just relative comfort. I mean, I like wearing sandals around and all that stuff. I'm in Florida for crying out loud, but just the comfort level. If I'm out, I'll just wear socks.
I am definitely a socks all the time person. I wear socks around the house, socks with shoes. Yeah, just socks all the time. All right, short sleeves versus long sleeves.
Short sleeves. I like feeling the air.
Look,
I don't.
I'm a big guy, but I really enjoy long sleeves. I and probably arguably probably three quarters. Like I like rolling up my sleeves
Okay.
when it where
I don't mind rolling out my sleeve. I don't want to be confined. I like having the a little bit of air going. Keep everything flowing.
nothing will compare to the astonished look on your face when Coop and I were waiting in line at Barn Smoker a few years ago, and you came up behind us, and Coop in his jeans, and
Oh my God.
my plaid shirt with my sleeves rolled up, and you're like, "What the fuck is wrong with you guys?"
Yeah. First of all, you're on a working farm. It was insanely hot.
And the
I'm
humidity
sweating to
was like a
death because we're
thousand
like,
degrees. Yeah,
right. I'm sitting there sweating to death because we're running all over the place, and like, and I'm sitting there. And I look at you two. I'm like, how are you not dying already? And it's only 9 a.m.
yeah, it was really warm that day.
Yeah.
The humidity at 175% was also pretty
Well,
clutch.
yeah, but you guys powered through, and you got some good interviews out of that one. You
Yeah, it was
guys,
a great time for sure. All right. Well, that was our this or that segment, sponsored by Artista Cigars. We'll move on to our next segment, which is Everybody Eats, brought to you by Pastania Cigars. If you always make sure that your servant's towel is bigger than your appetite, everybody will always get theirs. Pastania Cigars is more than just great cigars made by cool people. They embody an attitude of gratitude and grit. With Pastania, everybody eats. So, Joe, what is the best experience that you've had eating with other people?
hmm. I'm gonna, I'm gonna use this one. I don't know if it's 100% my best, but it's one of my favorite memories. And unfortunately, I don't think you were there that night. But we took media out to dinner. We went to Bizarre Meats. It was me, uh, I know McTavish was there, Aaron was there, a few other people were there, and we had such just a great conversation and a fun night. And at one point, we ate through all the ribeyes that we ordered, and we were like, "Do we just want to get some more?" And we inquired to our waiter, and he just looked at us like, "Are you guys insane?" John would remember this, the waiter specifically, and then he actually stole the steaks from the incoming table that was the like table next to us, so that we could get ours because he liked us so much. But it was just such a fun night. It was just we had such a good time and just a great evening of just talking about cigars, talking about everything, life. That was a fun night, man.
There's something to be said about like family dinners and family holiday meals and stuff like that. I think that those have a special place in my heart in terms of memories and stuff. But I will say this that the meals that I've shared with cigar people over the years are some of the most um, enjoyable, engaging. I mean, beyond the incredible food that we've had to enjoy
Yeah.
together, but most enjoyable and engaging conversations that I've ever been a part of. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
obviously cigars is the center part of it, and there's a lot of discussion that's usually around that topic, but there's always there it always branches off into some of the most invigorating conversation that can ever
Because yeah, and
exist.
I think it just becomes because we come from such unique backgrounds
Yeah.
that in a normal world we may or may not have ever interacted. You
Yes.
know, that we may not have ever met, that we may not have ever, broken bread or, just shared a moment of dialogue. But a cigar united us.
Hmm.
The tobacco bonded us, and that allowed us to express who we are and talk about our lives, our backgrounds, and form a friendship over something that is, just that's unique to us. That's something that's very unique about the cigar industry that I truly love. And it's why I love working, being in retail because you fosters those moments, those dialogues. It doesn't matter if you're a plumber and a guy who manages investment portfolios and you drive a Mercedes or a Bentley and you pull up to the shop, you're all equals when you're sitting around in the lounge.
Hmm.
We talk, we bond, what do you like, what do you not like, and then tell a little bit about yourselves.
Yeah.
And that's just so cool. And then to be able to the friendships that I've made, the bonds that we've had, again, if it wasn't for cigars, I wouldn't have met on, I wouldn't have worked at Drew Estate, I wouldn't have met my wife, I wouldn't have had my kids.
I mean, that's
That's
it's
really impactful on my life.
sure.
That even if I walked away tomorrow, cigars
Cigars gave you that. Yeah.
has changed my life,
Yeah.
has given me my life.
Hmm. Yeah, in a lot of
And
ways.
that is special.
Yeah, I mean, some of the most lifelong friendships. I've shared two meals with On, and I've had a handful, a couple conversations with him. And every time I talk to him, I wish that we lived closer because if we did, I would invite that guy over to dinner, at least once a month. And not because I know we would share an incredible meal together because we both have incredible taste in food, but the conversations that I have with him again go beyond the scope of cigars that are just utterly fascinating. And
Right.
he's also got the endurance of a 15-year-old. Like he can go all night, which is just
Yeah,
insane.
he's a machine.
Yeah.
He's insane. But but it's cool. And
Yeah.
that's why again, this industry is unlike anything else. And I truly love it and appreciate everything that's blessed me with.
Last two questions here, Joe, before we conclude our night. Our next segment is brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than a physical place, it can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in our own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. So light up an asylum and choose your refuge. So, Joe, I think you've taken part of this segment once, but maybe you have a particularly different answer this time around. We ask every week, every so often, we talked about how community driven cigars are. Even during COVID, your mission was to bring people together, right? And that's what cigars do. But these cigars are still very magical and impactful for us on a personal level. And so every so often we have the opportunity to smoke a cigar by ourselves. And, it could be in celebration of something, it can be in reflection of something. You've probably had a dozen or so of these moments in your lifetime. But what's a moment that comes to mind where it was just you and the cigar, nothing else? What was that moment about? And if you can remember, what were you smoking?
Oh, I mean, this one's clear as day, and I think this might have been the one I shared with you last time, but it's still true because I do it every year. It is a Hoya de Nicaragua numero uno. So when, as we talked about earlier, when my son was born and I left the PCA early that year, um, that was a false alarm, but he was born a couple days later. I literally had my carry-on. I left my luggage at the hotel for someone else to send back or bring back with them. I was freaking out because I didn't want to miss the birth of my son, my firstborn. My wife, went into, she went into labor early, which is, the second or third time because she had to be given the medication because they wanted to be born with 32 weeks. And now we were closer to the due date. And so we thought it was going to happen. So in a panic, everyone told me just go home, go now. So I booked the flight. And by the time I got to the airport, I said, oh, well, what am I going to smoke when he's born? And I rifled through my bag. I only had one cigar. This is coming from the trade show. I had one cigar. It was a Hoya Nicaragua in the nice little coffin that they gave out at the show as a media sample. That was the one cigar. So I said, you know what? That's a sign. And when he was born, I had that cigar. And then I was gifted by Juan Martinez and Dan Barrios, who was the brand manager at the time. They gave me a box with my son's name and his birthday as a secondary band on those cigars. And every year on his birthday, I do a nice little pour of rum and I light up one of those cigars from the box. And that is my one of my favorite traditions because it gives me a good solid 2 hours where I'm going to sit back and I reflect on myself as a father of how the year went. And I think about what I've done right, what I've done wrong, what I can do better, how I can, and how he's growing. And I think back to I look at some pictures and I think back to when he was super tiny and I look at him now and I say, wow, like how proud I am of
Hmm.
what he's becoming. And the man, he's only 5 now, but he's already so big in so many ways.
Yeah.
And he knows more dinosaurs than a lot of people, which is really fun. But I mean, it's just so much fun, like where he's so bright and so curious. And yeah, there's days where, as you know, as a father, you are frustrated as anything.
Oh, of course.
But those are just fleeting moments.
Hmm.
And that's one of those great times where you can just sit back and collect all of your thoughts. And I truly enjoy that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that was our silent moment. And our last question of the night, Joe, is of course our Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust curveball segment. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter since the company's inception. Steve Sock has been knocking them out of the park 9 consecutive years in the consensus top three. Congratulations to our good friend, Mr. Steve Saka. He's insisting that that's where it's going to end. Of course, we all know that not to be true, but we'll humor him as we always do. So 9 consecutive years of the consensus top three. Congratulations to our friend Steve Saka. Um, so Joe, we talked a little bit about this project that you had the opportunity to be a part of. So, which was the development of this omnidirectional wheelchair. And granted, this was in high school, but I mean that's a you know pretty amazing piece of machinery that you know in a lot of ways could have really revolutionized the medical industry and for people in need of such technology. Um, I wonder, if you had kind of stuck with that. What do you think? What do you think you would have been a part of, or what do you think you would have created if you had kind of kept going down that path as opposed to what you eventually have done? Now, granted, like we talked about, cigars have given you your life, that's given you your family. I know you don't have any regrets, but like just for fun, what do you think you would have been a part of creating?
Honestly, I think that if I was going to stick, if I stuck with it or really went back to where I would love to have gone again, at one point during my college career, I actually had the opportunity and I interned at NASA Goddard, so at Greenbelt, Maryland, and that was some of the most fun that I've had. I actually got to work on flight hardware. It's actually a part of the International Space Station,
Oh,
and
wow.
that is such a cool experience to literally be a part of such a massive thing. And to give you an idea, like, and I'm sure that Omar Fratello could talk about this. The inside joke is to fly a space shuttle, you have to have the equivalent amount of paperwork in terms of weight and size, and that is actually accurate. but it's just, the amount of testing that goes into the rigor. But I would love to have gone back into that. And actually, it's cool. Just a couple weeks ago, actually, I took my son for the first time to Kennedy Space Center, and I got to show him different things. And we got to, he got up to the International Space Station. And I said, "Look, Daddy worked on something that was on there." And it was really cool, like to see his reaction. Like, he thinks I built rockets now, but
That's awesome.
that was just, but it was just a cool moment to have, to be like that, to have an inspiring moment. And that would be something that I think that if you're talking about where I would work or what I'd be working on, I would have loved to go back to that at some point because
That's right.
that was unique. That was fun.
Well, I mean, in contextual kind of viewpoint, Joe, you've that's pretty. I mean, that's amazing. From a literal global perspective, you had your fingerprints on a pretty astounding part of history. And then,
Hmm.
subsequently too, the path that you chose, you've had your fingerprints on some of the most, as we talked about, the most iconic brands and in on the cigar market. What you did with the projects like the Underground 10, Liga Privada, et cetera, Drew, Zycar in the accessories world. Now, Casa de Montecristo, you know, these are flagship, iconic, and that word gets thrown around a lot, but I mean, they really are brands of this industry, that are the quintessential household names that you have put your hands on and rolled your sleeves up and put work into. And I mean, that's, man, I mean, and like I said, I know you're younger than me too, Joe, but like, I mean, in the young life that you've had, I mean, you've done so much with it in such a little amount of time. And I know you're not nowhere near done. I mean, it's something to celebrate and something, sir.
Well,
I hope you're proud of it because you deserve to be.
I am, and I'm proud of the work that I've done and that I've been able to leave fingerprints and traces there. But I'm more proud of all the teams that I've worked with because there's not one thing that you do by yourself. I'm not a man that's just like, oh, okay, I do this for the glory. Yeah, we all have egos, and I do have a massive ego at times. But at the end of the day, I always reflect back on what I could do with the teams that I've worked with, how we've all pulled together and we're able to surmount the amount that one person can do and really pull something together and launch something or build something. And that's what it's all about because that's how you actually generate an impact. That's how, I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to be with the people that I've been with, the timing, it's all been lucky. And that's, part of it. Yes, we work hard, but it came down to the right people, the right time, the right teams, and with the right plans that we all got to work on. And it came out to be some magnificent stuff. And like you said, this is only the beginning. I still have a long career. I'm going to be a casa, and I really want to show and really kind of give our guests and what all customers what cigar retail can be, should be, and will be going forward.
It's awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight, man. What a great conversation. Really enjoyed it, man. Consider you a dear friend. I really do appreciate the time. As you mentioned, you have a young family, and I know you're spending time away from them to sit down with me for a few hours and have this conversation. So thank you for the opportunity, man. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Bear, thank you so much for having me, brother. It's always a pleasure. And I truly love our conversation. That's the thing, right? Look, we've been going now. It's almost what, 1:30 almost.
Hmm.
We've been going now for a good solid 2, 3 hours, and I've been loving it. It just flows by. It's just a natural conversation between friends.
Exactly, man. Totally agree. So, well, we thank our audience as well for staying up late with us. We do appreciate you all. Continue those likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. You can check us out live on Facebook every Sunday night when we broadcast. 9:30 Central is when we start. And then you can always catch us on video replay later on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is brought to you by Foundation Cigar Company. Don't forget their dedication and their values. Um, to the cigar world. Nick Melillo is a well-known cigar maker in the premium cigar industry. He is the founder and owner of the Foundation Cigar Company, which produces a range of high-quality handcrafted cigars that are based on his values of quality, consistency, balance, and flavor. As well as our audio broadcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether you be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, are brought to you by Gran Habano Cigars. Honest, compassionate, great cigars. Be sure you download, subscribe, and review today. If you already are a subscriber, do me a favor, hit unsubscribe, but don't forget to hit resubscribe. That helps my numbers. I really do appreciate it. And if you are going to leave, if you are going to give me a 1-star review, make sure that you leave feedback that's constructive. Otherwise, I can't get better. So to the recent reviewer who did give me a 1-star review and was blaming my audio levels for that, appreciate that. That is constructive. Hopefully, you've been able to hear us a lot better these last few weeks since you left that review. But we have gotten a lot of 5-star reviews as well who do love everything that we do and the interviews that we conduct. So it's much appreciated and much obliged for everybody here at ELOSOFUMARTAKES. We do appreciate it. So for everyone out there, again, we do appreciate all those likes, shares, and comments. Keep them coming. This has been fantastic conversation. I'm Bear Duplessis. This was our 313th take live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star Studio of Azle, Texas. He's Joe Grow. I'm Bear, and guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.